Wednesday, January 22nd, 2025. We are in the Washington City Hall in the council chamber for our workshop meeting. All of our meetings are broadcast live at washingtoncity.org/meetings and also archived for viewing later. We've got a good agenda for tonight. Council, you can read that over. I'll just turn to you for a motion to approve that, and we'll get started.
So moved, Mayor.
Have a motion by Councilman Coates.
I'll second that.
Second by Councilman Ivey. I'm going to wait for just 1 second. I want this to be a unanimous vote. All in favor?
Aye.
The agenda is approved. We couldn't be more happy with our newly elected Senator John Curtis, and he is currently in DC for a lot of the exciting events that have just happened, but he is joining us on Zoom. Senator, are you there? Can you hear us? Looks like there's the Senator's aide, Mr. Razor.
Yep.
All right.
Thanks for having me.
Wonderful. We're happy to, if the senator's close by, I know that it gets busy back there in DC. If he's close by, we can start right now. Otherwise, we can move to the next item and circle back. Next item will be about 10 to 20 minutes. Your call.
Hey, Mayor, this is Corey Norman. I'm the Senator's Chief of Staff. How are you, sir?
Hey, doing well, Corey.
I'm looking at Adrielle because she should be still in the office with him. Is he there?
He's here. He's logging on right now. So
Okay, sorry. I know we were having just a minute of hiccup getting on. I had a little minute also, so apologize about that. I know he's trying to get on there.
No, you're just fine. Hey, Corey and Adrielle, it's good to see you again.
Pleasure.
We know you from
yes, how are
all
you?
of your activities up and down the state here, back in your home state. So we're just really happy that you would take the time to be with our city and with these new constituents. When the senator gets there, we'd just ask maybe just a little introduction, and then.
There he is.
Oh, wonderful!
There he is.
Senator Curtis,
You're muted,
welcome.
boss.
Welcome to Washington City Hall.
You're muted, boss.
Okay, can you hear me?
We can hear you loud and clear.
Mayor, it's great to be with you. Thanks for including me, and hello to your council members.
Well, we're honored that you would take a few minutes. We just really appreciate your service as a congressman, and then through this election, just your interaction with the city that could easily have been forgotten, but your multiple trips down here and your interaction with us and this elected body and staff. We really appreciate your interest and your support.
Well, you happen to have a city that everybody likes to go to. Who wouldn't come to your city?
Very, very true. But we would love an introduction, just a little bit more, get to know you a little bit better. Would like to hear some of your priorities as you step into this new role. I know we're all somewhat familiar, and then maybe if you have a little bit of time, if some of the group here has some questions, if you'd be willing to field a few, or actually any way you'd like to take it. I mean, it's been some exciting last few days.
It has been exciting. Let me do this. Let me just share a few thoughts with you about priorities and things, and then would love to take your questions. And I'll just kind of jump in and maybe even start with, you mentioned the last couple of days. What an atmosphere here in Washington. I've not seen anything like it in my time here. This is actually different than 8 years ago when President Trump first was elected. If you'll remember, 8 years ago, there was quite a bit of, he's not my president. Remember the Russian interference in the election. And that's all gone right now. You're hearing Democrats say things like, we're going to find ways to work with him. We're gonna get things done. There's some, I think it's fair to say there's some pent up frustration from Americans, and not just Republicans, but Americans, on affordability, on what's happening at the border, what's happening overseas. And if you just look at the string of I'm not a big fan of executive orders, but let me tell you, yesterday it was pretty impressive. The last how many hours that the president has dealt with, like in just a few minutes, dealt with the border. Why? Like, Americans are so frustrated because they knew that could be done. And I think while we still have some problems there, you're going to see the vast amount of those dealt with very quickly. Also a little bit different from President Trump. I'm a little careful here, but he wore a purple tie at the inauguration. That shouldn't be lost on people. He always wears a red tie. I think he's reaching out. I think he truly wants to lead the whole country and not just half the country. And I hope that goes well. And I hope we're able to unite as a country behind some of these real high priorities. Just quickly, a little bit about me and my team. As you know, we've worked in Utah's 3rd congressional district, and that's put us right in the middle of some really important energy conversations. Utah's natural resources and how they're used, and I like to feel like we've been successful in changing really the international conversation about fossil fuels and how they're used and how they can actually reduce emissions, and how we do what we do in Utah and here in the United States is very clean. And so I will continue to do our work there on energy. I was in Congress just 3 weeks when President Trump repealed Bears Ears, and so we have a little bit of experience with that. And now with the president coming in, we hope to make some vast changes to the way that these monuments are handled. And of course, your Northern Corridor fits into that as well. And very hopeful and optimistic that we can finally deliver to you that Northern Corridor, the ability to go forward with that. I'll just tell you, it's a high priority, not just of the Curtis office, but the entire federal delegation. Celeste has been, well, I should say Representative Malloy has been really, really good on this and is all over it. Senator Lee is very good and all over it. And Senator Lee fortunately chairs the right committee. I mean, he's the actual chair of the committee that would deal with a lot of these public lands issues and can help on the Northern Corridor. So that's a really important deal. I know down in that part of the state, our national debt really throughout the state is a big concern. And so that's a high priority here on the Curtis team. We have a number of proposals that not just cut money, but actually reform the way that we spend money, that we think would give us some foundational differences that would make it easier instead of so hard to cut. And there's a real, I've been here 7 years and I've not yet seen the amount of people willing to talk about debt as are talking about it now, and who are really very, very concerned about it. And so I'm hoping we move the needle there. And of course, those who know me well know that I love to beat up on the Communist Party in China, not the Chinese people, but their leadership. I love to brag. There's a warrant for my arrest in Hong Kong because I've been so aggressive. This impacts Utahns in a variety of ways. Prices at the store are impacted by Chinese overreach. Our security is impacted by it. It impacts our lives in a lot of ways. And that's just a real quick run through. I want to take a minute. I know Corey and Adriel were on for just a minute before. Corey is my chief of staff, best chief of staff on the planet. Corey, thanks for your help. Lori, I'm glad you came back on. Lori is our state director. She was my state director over on the House side, so she's been with us 7 years. And so Lori takes responsibility for both the whole operation. Lori's responsibilities are everything that happens in the state. She too will be getting down there with me and getting to know all of you and your issues. She's been down there a number of times, knows the area well. But Lori runs the team and the outreach team, and will be a really important part of it. And Adriel joins us on the line too. Adriel helps in a number of capacities, both over on the campaign side and the official side. And I'm just going to say it's the best team ever. They're amazing. Back in the house, they were
Senator?
giving.
We also have Jeff Racer on. who
Oh, thank you,
represents the
Jeff.
state
Yes.
To know him.
Jeff, I'm not looking around the screen good enough, so thank you for bringing that up. Jeff has specifically been assigned for Reach Out in that region in the state, and some of you will know Jeff from his great work that he's done, and you'll be getting to know Jeff better. Thank you.
And I'm just going to interrupt real quick there, Senator. There's only one of the five of us that is actually a property owner in Washington City. So,
And that would be Chief of Staff Corey Norman, which means he's down there a lot
Like
too.
you already, Corey.
yep, y'all are the best. Love it, love it, love it.
Yeah. Let's take a few of your questions, and we'd love to know what's on your mind, how we can help you. I'll just mention when I was in the campaign, I learned I really should start every conversation with water, water, water. Interestingly, I didn't hear about that as much in the eastern part of the states, but I'll tell you over in your region, it's a big deal. And I serve my committee assignments. Let me mention that quickly. I serve on the Environment and Public Works Committee. And one of the reasons we picked that committee is it'll have a lot to do with water and some of these public lands issues as well, in addition to Mike's committee. So we really want to jump in with you there in your efforts. I know you've made just tremendous strides and efforts, and yet it's still a big issue for you there. And with that, Mayor, what questions do you all have?
Yeah, Senator, you have the beat of our pulse dialed in. You hit many of those main topics. Council, questions for the senator.
Mayor, I have one.
Councilman Ivey.
Senator Curtis, this is Councilman Ivey. We're
Hello,
not very pleased about Trump's win. We're especially pleased with your win. We know the record that you have and how well you represent your constituents throughout the entire state. We appreciate you and your staff, but you kind of read my mind with your last comments about water. We're now experiencing one of the worst water table years that we've ever had. We need a reuse pipeline down here. We need infrastructure storage, and that takes a lot of money. So, you know, I'm sure this is something you're going to hear a lot about. Just want you to know that I feel like that is definitely something that needs to be one of our priorities. But just congratulations to you. We're so proud to have you back there representing us.
Thanks. Thank you so much, Councilman Ivey. And I would also say on that water issue, we're tied at the hip with both Senator Lee and Celeste Malloy, Representative Malloy, realizing we're going to need an all hands on deck effort, and the other members of the delegation too. We work really well together, and really ready to jump in on some of those water issues that you've got and see how we could be helpful.
Perfect. Additional questions, Councilman Casperson on this end, Councilman Coates?
Yeah, Senator, this is Councilman Coates. What is, another problem we have down here is affordability or attainable housing. And so the biggest problem we see is that land costs are so much, and we just need help from the federal government to help turn over, especially the BLM land, some of the BLM that's not, there's not issues with any endangered species, that the process is just taking way too long to get through to get some of these things through. And so how do we speed up that process so we can start building on some of those lands that aren't they're good for development, but not good for saving for native?
Yeah, thanks, Craig. Councilman, I totally agree with you. I feel like there is a federal role here. There's obviously a state role too, and a county and a city role, but the federal role, I'll just mention a couple of things. With me on EPW and Mike on ENR, we're really well positioned to deal with some of these public lands issues, and I mentioned Mike chairs that. And so we think we can help there. Senator Lee has a bill that I'm a big fan of that would help transfer public lands that could specifically be used for housing. I have a bill, we call his the homes bill and mine the houses bill. And my bill, it's kind of goes into the weeds a little bit, but it unlocks the ability of people with IRAs, individual retirement accounts, to use that IRA money to buy a home for themselves or their children and keep it in the IRA with all the characteristics of the IRA. I think those are just a couple of examples of how we can come to the rescue on a federal level. Most importantly, I think that the big thing the federal government can do is take down inflation, interest rates. I can't even fathom how much that's pushed the cost of housing up to have interest rates up there as 7, 8%, and sometimes even higher. And to do that, we have to rein in our spending, and that we are committed to do.
Thank you, Senator. And just being respectful of your time, but Councilman Henderson and Councilman Bellison, anything you'd like to add? Senator, just kind of your final thoughts and anything you'd like from us on our end.
Well, you all know I served as the mayor of Provo, and I'm just here to tell you, you're the best. Mayor, council members, the real rubber hits the road in your meetings. I like somehow I find city council meetings fascinating, and I know that most people don't, but you're doing the hard work and the heavy lifting. And so thank you. Thanks for your willingness to serve. I think the local government gives the best bang for the taxpayer dollar anywhere. I think you do the most work, and I think you're the most accountable. If we could duplicate what you do here in Washington, we would be wildly successful. So thank you for giving me this opportunity. Thanks to my great staff. We'll continue to interact with you and look forward to seeing you in person very, very soon.
Well said. Thanks again. We really appreciate it.
Thanks, y'all. Best to you. Hope to see you soon.
Bye-bye. All right, Senator Curtis and staff. I think we're going to be very well represented in the Senate and as well as in the House with awareness and attention to the local issues and priorities. So I know we all feel very fortunate to have that kind of leadership. Next item, this is our dear friend Tim Martin, and he's going to speak to us about the USS Utah. I know the USS Utah, from the historic standpoint, has been something we've been leading out around the state with the resolution, remembering what's been called the forgotten ship of World War II. But he's going to share with us a little bit about the next generation of the USS Utah. Mr. Martin.
Thank you for this opportunity. You've met Mike Lamoureux, who is the acting chairman. This photo is Secretary of the Navy when he met with our acting chairman at the time, naming the USS Utah, which originally was hull number 800 because they're sequential as they're authorized. But when they realized that the area code was 801 for most of Utah, they changed the hull number to 801. So next slide. Who's control? Oh, I am. Okay. Somehow. Oh, turned it off. Which one? There we go. So that's a Virginia class submarine with all the masts raised, and the significance of this picture is that those two black masts are not real periscopes. They're photonic masts that have a TV camera and an infrared camera on the top. So they operate outside the hull. There are no periscopes that go down, and that allows the submarine to move the control room down one deck and make it twice as big. So, but that's the characteristic. You all received a bookmark, which has the characteristics of the USS Utah. It was ordered in 2014. Tough timing because they started building it in September of 21, just as COVID hit. So they were hoping to commission it in 24. That's now been delayed 3 years because it'll be 27 by the time they get it all ready to go. There'll be a commissioning probably next year, maybe the end of this year or next year.
Where is it commissioned?
It's commissioned. There's 3 big steps. The first is it's laid down where used to be the keel was laid.
But what port?
We don't know.
Okay.
It could operate, almost all these boats operate out of a U.S. port. In San Diego, New London, Connecticut, Norfolk. Some boats are in Guam to be close to China and Russia. So it depends on whatever the needs of the fleet are at the time they get there. Okay. We'll talk about the dimensions in a second, but The committee that's established is just to let everybody know what is the Utah. You know, as you said, we have two, the old USS Utah and today the Utah will become one of about 63 operating nuclear submarines. The committee will be raising money to provide financial assistance. We'll have a scholarship committee for the families that serve on the USS Utah, so their kids will get a scholarship. We'll make some improvements, those are quality of life enhancements on the Utah. We'll give them a fancier coffee machine and some other better ice cream machine. And the sub is going to be well blessed. We will have visits by the crew. The captain is setting that up right now, and I'm hoping we can swing them down to Washington City. So, but that won't happen for probably about a year. This is what it looks like. It's the 28th of the Virginia class, and there was a Los Angeles class. My boat was the boat that I was engineer on was hull number 594. So you can see there were a lot of boats built between the one that I drove. I was the engineer. I broke my reactor 3 times in ways that had never been broken before because it was just everything was so new, you know. And but as you look at this model, a couple of key things you'll notice on the very bow are the Fairwater planes, and those are so that the ship can surface through the ice. And those are also retractable. Down at the bottom is a special sonar system. Those 3 pods along the side are a side sonar. Instead of a screw all the way back aft, it's a propulsor, which shields the screw so it won't make cavitation and they can go faster sooner. And then along the side, along where am I? It doesn't show up on there. Right below where it says 801 and you follow, there's a little line there. That's a sonar system that we can stream, and it's about a mile long, and you stream it behind the sub because you can't hear behind you when you're operating. That nuclear plant back aft makes enough noise that the sub can't hear. So they stream that and they can detect anybody and basically remain undetected. The missions are to, this is a fast attack. This is a model of a boomer. A boomer carries the rockets. Fast attack doesn't, although in the very bow of the Utah will be 12 vertical launch tubes that launch the Tomahawk. And that's for any kind of attack on lands, and they were used before. But the biggest thing is to go and spy on the Russians, okay, and the Chinese. We followed a Russian sub. I was gone for 6 months at one time, and we picked up and followed the newest Russian sub for 38 days. And we were there when they launched their newest rocket. So that was pretty exciting stuff. And these guys can do even more because they're quieter and they're even more capable. Here's the statistics, some of which are on your bookmark. So it's 377 feet long and 34 feet around. The internal diameter is 34 feet. So you can have 4 decks, 3 decks that are about 9 feet, and then whatever's left over is the bottom deck. 7,800 tons, that's bigger than a cruiser. S9G nuclear reactor. S mean it's a submarine reactor. It's the ninth generation made by General Electric. 210 megawatts, a large power plant that of any kind, coal or nuclear, is about 1,000 megawatts. So this is still a pretty significant power plant. The sub will operate for 33 years and never refuel. So that's the miracle of nuclear power, that they can go all of that time and never have to refuel. The 12 vertical launch tubes, plus to keep the noise down. It used to have the torpedo tubes in the bow, but now they're amidships and out at a 15-degree angle so that the sonar can get a better sound. 15 officers, you have 135 people. There will be women eventually serving on there. There are women qualified in submarines and taking some senior positions now, so it'll be a mixed crew here soon. They go faster than 25 knots. We, even in the old days, I got out in 75, but we could go, about 35 miles an hour downhill with the wind, and we went to 1,300 feet. That was our depth, which was kind of exciting because we went there many times. My hull number was the hull number 594, USS Permit, hull number 594. The only two nuclear subs that have sunk, their first one was the Thresher, hull number 593, which was the same boat as mine, and it sank. And it was at 1,300 feet and had a major seawater accident, and they didn't really understand everything that needed to be done, and the boat sank. I actually took my boat to 1,300 feet, and we had a major seawater accident at 1,300 feet, which is pretty dramatic, but obviously lived to fight another day because of the system review and all the upgrades that had been made to the sub at that time. Cost, that's my number, $4.5 billion. That's this Ohio class with all the rockets, it was about $2 billion. So the cost goes up, and that even is an estimate of what it is. So the keel was laid in 21. We hope the christening might be this year, and the christening is when they name the boat. And so some woman will be designated to break a bottle of champagne. You can see it's up in the factory, in the plant. It's no longer in the water, and that's what the Utah will be. It'll be sitting on the ground in a factory, and they'll have a big christening party with thousands of people, and they'll christen it the USS Utah. And then it takes about 1.5 years for that. Instead of sliding it into the water, it's sitting on wheeled carts, electric carts that will drive it out over an elevator that will lower the Utah down and then flood the dry dock, and that's how it gets underway. And it'll still have another 6-8 months of construction, and then it goes out for a series of 3 sea trials where they make sure that everything is running. When that all is complete, then it'll be commissioned, and the boat's in the water at that time, and the captain is designated as, now he's the captain of an operating submarine, and that's another big deal, okay, is to have this commissioning with about 6,000 people in attendance, and there'll be a lot of dignitaries, of course, from Utah that will be participating, and you will be invited to participate in both the christening and the commissioning, both of which will take place in Groton, Connecticut, which is about an hour from Hartford, Connecticut. So believe me, I'll keep you updated on how that's going to go. I'm going to skip some of this other than to say that if you look at the bottom, there is a commanding officer and a commissioning team. That's us, and then the shipbuilding, the crew has begun reporting. The captain, they've already had a change of command, so that's how long they've been operating as the USS Utah. We have a committee, and you've met Mike Lamoureux and various people trying to make sure that everybody in Utah knows all about it. Our goal is to raise $900,000 for funding these activities, fund visits so that people from the Utah can come to Utah, on July 24th or whatever programs we want to have. We'll upgrade the quality of life for the crew, the Dolphin Scholarship, and we've raised already, actually that's gone up some, above the 214,000. You won't ever see it in writing. Well, you'll see the state. The state was initially right away, they donated 100,000, and the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints will never admit it, but they have already also donated 80,000. So the process that events that happen are the chairman's reception at the commissioning, platform briefing, et cetera, big deal at the time of commissioning. There is the USS Illinois, which was a Virginia class. That's the picture that you see as they were commissioned years ago. So we have our objectives of what we want to do. There's the letter. Kenneth Gunderson was designated by Governor Herbert way back when. Just so you don't think that you're immune to having inner problems, Kenneth Gunderson's biked in a 100-mile bike ride on a Saturday, and Tuesday he just didn't wake up. And so that's why he's no longer the chairman, but he was the one that received that first letter. The sponsorship for corporate, and that's really what I would hope you, the city of Washington, would think about. We have 5 different levels, and the real bottom line is this. If you are a presidential reading across the top and you donate $50,000, then you get all the things in that column, including a casting of the USS Utah's ship's bell. Every ship in the Navy has a bell with its name, and it gets commissioned. There will also be models available. So if you opt to go at the chairman's level, you get a museum quality model about the same size, actually a little bit bigger than this. And coin sets for the Utah, golf shirts, program ad. If you were to decide to be in the chairman's level, you would have in all of these programs, which will be, of course, attended by a lot of Utahites, a full-page ad in the commissioning commemorative program, an opportunity to speak at the chairman's reception, VIP invitations for all the things that take place. And at the bottom, a plank owner, if you are part of the crew that is assigned to the boat or any ship when it's commissioned, then you are a plank owner. So that's really the bottom line that I would leave for you to think about. Is we would love to invite the city of Washington to become a sponsor of the USS Utah and participate in all these things. The end of what I have is just some photos from their visit that happened in 23. They came out, the crew came out and participated. They had a float for the July 24th parade, and similar to our Utah float that we had for our Pioneer Day. So that's what I hope would happen. And then Governor Cox made a presentation to Commander Coase, who's now been replaced by Captain Hornan. And I've spoken with him several times. So that's the bottom line. Comments, questions, thoughts?
Council, interaction with Mr. Martin.
You all received a bookmark. I would call your attention, look at that and the window sticker, because the USS Utah, this emblem will appear everywhere. And notice at the top it has the mountains of Utah, including the arch and a temple on the left side, and then the water down below. So it captures, we hope, the spirit of the state of Utah in that seal of the ship. Questions, comments?
Yeah, so it's being
Troy.
commissioned in Connecticut, but is that where it's being built as well?
In Groton, Connecticut, right.
Okay.
Actually, it's part of it is built in New London, part of it are Groton, and part of it is built up in Rhode Island, and they bring pieces down, and part of it's built in Virginia. That's the bow going through the river from Rhode Island down to Groton, Connecticut. So it's assembled in pieces and then put together in modules, but it's all the commissioning, the christening will happen in Groton, Connecticut, right by Hartford. Okay.
Well, this is fascinating and entirely appropriate for you to be here today.
Great, thank you.
This has been quite the journey with our small town, starting with a grassroots effort to remember the forgotten
Yeah.
ship. So to make that connection from Pearl Harbor and World War II through where we're going today. This has been a journey that I don't think any of us really anticipated
Right.
would go this far, all the way up to the recognition at the state level. So
Yeah, and I think, as we advertise up north, there'll be a lot more work kind of early on seeking sponsorships. And we're doing that because I'm here and I'm not going to be here in a few months, and I didn't want to miss the chance. Plus, I was invited to sit on the Utah float, and so, but we'll be advertising those sponsors. So if Washington City said, hey, yeah, we really want to do that, you'd be recognized, for the next 2 years as one of the sponsors of this, as we talk to all the other commercials and go to the state for additional funding.
well, that's fantastic. Well done.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, sir.
Thank you.
We appreciate it very much.
Thank you. And I'll be around for questions anytime.
We've heard from the senator, we've heard from the engineer and admiral on a nuclear sub, but we just keep it going. Next, we hear from Morgan Drake and Trinity with the Washington County Water Conservancy District. Looking forward to a presentation on the regional reuse purification system. And I had the chance to hear this update a few weeks ago. You did a wonderful job, both of you did. And I think I was first in line, wasn't I, to say, I need you in front of my council.
Yes, and I'm glad you were. Happy to be back. I really appreciate it. It was, I think, last May. I was here, provided an update on the system, and I'm going to start with just a refresher. Got some fancier slides for you. Talk about the system, and then Trinity, who's a project manager with the district and is overseeing a lot of the reuse projects, will take over and talk about the pipeline alignment study we've been doing. So we'll focus this update on that. But please, as I'm going through, interrupt with questions. Okay. I want to start off by saying a big thank you to you all, to your staff. You've been great to work with as we've been working through the reuse authorization contracts with all the municipal partners. And I know that's on your agenda for the meeting after this one. We have, including you all, if it's passed today, 5 of the 7 reuse authorization contracts. So we're still coordinating with Hurricane. And then St. George City has a separate contract because they've been doing reuse for 20 years now. So just needed to recognize that. So we really appreciate it. Our 20-year plan cannot work without our municipal partners. So thank you so much. I know you've seen this a lot, but we can't talk about reuse without talking about One Water and talking about our 20-year plan. So One Water recognizes the value of water at every stage of the water cycle. And that's really what our 20-year plan is doing, that you guys are partners on. And so we have 5 initiatives in that 20-year plan: driving down water use through conservation of existing users, expanding reuse, which we'll talk about more today, and doing local supply development, which we're pretty much there. We really squeezed every drop we can with supply development aside from reuse. Natural agricultural conversion. So as this community just grows and ag goes out of production and we transition to municipal and industrial use, the savings there. And then also working with our municipal partners to do groundwater studies to see if we can be pumping more from our aquifers. We've got the water rights, but we don't want to harm the aquifers. So it really is reuse and conservation. Between those 2 initiatives, that's 75% of our 20-year plan. So that will definitely be the focus for the next 20 years here, and we really appreciate your support. So you can see in the blue there is reuse water, and it is going to come on in phases. So the first drop essentially that we have in here is starting next year. And that is focusing on Confluence Park Water Reclamation Facility in the service area of Tokerville and Laverkin. That also includes the west side with Graveyard Wash, which is close to getting its permits for construction and really starting to see some of the reuse benefits there. And then in 2030, that jump you see is getting the large interconnected reuse pipelines on board to start seeing those water supply benefits. And the whole point of reuse, I know we're talking reuse water, but the whole point of it is drinking water. That's really what generating additional reuse water is going to get us. And so this shows how we are going to do it in coordination with our program partner, St. George City, which has the Regional Water Reclamation Facility, which you guys are partners on, and then Ash Creek Special Service District. So how we operate is we have our diversion, as you know, on the Virgin River, and we divert that water to our drinking water reservoirs, Quail and Sand Hollow, and then that goes through drinking water treatment, and then we sell it wholesale and send it to the communities where it's utilized, and then that water goes to water reclamation facilities. And at the water reclamation facility, it's treated to type 1 standards. So that's Utah code, and that is safe for human contact, but not human consumption. And so we're doing that to an extent right now, but we want to ramp that up and be able to store that type 1 reuse water in new storage reservoirs to ultimately use it outdoors. And we want to use it outdoors with outdoor irrigation and then specifically targeting agricultural users. So send that water to those users, and that is going to free up the current water sources. And current water sources include, for instance, Virgin River water. So we could be sending reuse water to those users and then be diverting more of the Virgin River water to our drinking water reservoirs. And that's what gets us our increased water supply. So what I just described to you is called non-potable reuse. We're not drinking it, we're using it outdoors. So that is essentially the middle portion of this cycle you're seeing. So we're gonna start there with an expansion. We're already doing it to an extent. And then we are going to transition to what we call potable reuse. So that's taking the type 1 reuse water that's safe for human contact but not consumption, sending it through an advanced water purification facility, and then sending it to our drinking water reservoirs. And so that the drinking water reservoir is called an environmental buffer, and you'll hear the term, especially you, Mayor and Jeremy, indirect potable reuse. You'll hear a lot of it next week. And so that is a really great way to become even more drought resilient. We are reusing, we're capitalizing on the water cycle, we're not letting a drop go to waste, which is really, really critical. We've talked about the drought earlier in this meeting. One thing I do want to mention, although it's new for us, advanced water purification and potable reuse is not a new technology. So this has been going on for many decades throughout the world. There is a really great resource that I'm happy to share with you. Australia did a big study looking at potable reuse throughout the world, and they have an interactive map, and you can go and see and click on it, and it talks about their project, you know, and when it was implemented. And so if your constituents or anyone has any questions, that's a really, really good resource that I'm happy to share with you. But it's proven technology, and it's really our future here to get drinking water. Okay, so no surprise, it's going to take a lot of infrastructure to do this and to make this system work and make our system interconnected. And so I'll start with the reclamation side, the treatment, and then storage, and then Trinity will take it away with conveyance. But with our program partners, 3 newer expanded water reclamation facilities, and then the advanced water purification facility I discussed. And then 4 new reservoirs and 2 existing reservoirs. So just going back here, at the water reclamation facility, that's where our program partners, so we've got the St. George Regional Water Reclamation Facility will be expanded. We have Ash Creek's new Confluence Park Water Reclamation Facility, and then Ash Creek's current lagoon facility will go into a mechanical upgrade so it can generate the type 1 reuse water, because currently they're not doing that. So that's the 3 newer expanded facilities, and then you see the advanced water purification facility. There will be a demonstration facility that goes with that. We're piloting, we're seeing what the treatment process is going to be. It's going to be a public outreach opportunity, so we're really excited to coordinate with you on that as well. And then for the 4 new reservoirs, that's the middle portion there of the cycle, being able to store reuse water to be able to start doing those exchanges and free up drinking water supplies that are currently being used outdoors. And then the 2 existing reservoirs is top of this cycle, and that is what's going to facilitate the potable reuse. So to make this happen, we're also going to need a lot of pipelines. Our drinking water system is currently interconnected. Our secondary system is not so much. And then also water reclamation facility, they are designed for the wastewater to gravity flow. So then you gotta pump up the reuse water and distribute it. So a lot of conveyance, and then also what comes with this, which Trinity will get into, is permitting. So we wanted to come today and chat with you about some alignments we're looking at. So I'll hand it over to Trinity.
Thank you. This is something I'm excited to talk to you about. Feel free to stop or interrupt throughout it. It's something that I've become familiar with, and I don't want to glaze over anything too exciting if you do have questions. The image here on the screen is from our feasibility study. The yellow lines that you can see were the conceptual idea of how to move water from the southwest corner of our county back up to the northeast corner of Hurricane. There's conveniently or inconveniently 3 cities in the way of some major pipelines. So we procured Bowen Collins and Associates to help us with an alignment study and a preliminary design report for these conveyance, this conveyance system. Right? Well, you see there, it's a very busy image, but we looked at every potential road in the county that could hold a large diameter pipe. We're looking at a 48-inch welded steel pipeline, and looked at every segment of road and gave it a score, segment by segment, that looked at the cost associated with installing a pipe right there. We started out with a baseline of what would it cost us to install this pipe in an open field with easy digging, like perfect prime conditions, and evaluated bedrock, wind-blown sand, depth to groundwater, utility densities, any utilities that were in the way or maybe needed to be moved. And segment by segment was scored, and this was all, it's a sophisticated model that Bowen Collins has developed in GIS, and an algorithm helps route the pipeline through this model. You can see that the green and the yellow are the cheapest alignments, or the cheapest segments, with the darker colors being the most expensive. From the study, we came up with a short list of potential alignments. You can see here that the blue lines are the proposed shortlisted alignments to get from the St. George Regional Water Reclamation Facility up to Ash Creek's lagoons right now. And then with the light blue in the top right, moving from the lagoons into the Hurricane Canal Company and the irrigators up there. If you'll remember on the graph that Morgan presented that showed the demand and the available water supply over the next 20 years, the large jump in 2030 is the installation of those 2 pipelines and the necessary pump stations and 4 bays in between them. The other pipelines will be needed in the future to bring water back as Warner Valley comes online and other things, but those 2 segments are our first big push as we move forward. Do you have a question?
Did you say that was 48-inch welded steel pipeline?
Yes, that's what we've
okay.
modeled right now, is a 48-inch welded steel.
I've heard a lot about the eastern side of the county.
Yes.
You know, that's our primary interest. But could you talk a little bit about dry wash and how the water will be taken there and what areas it services? Because this is a regional, so I imagine it's almost countywide, not fully countywide, but almost fully.
Yes, and Morgan, you're welcome to jump in any time, but there's existing infrastructure that connects from the St. George Regional Water Reclamation Facility that ties up that direction, with Graveyard Reservoir, Wash Reservoir being the first that we're looking at building, and dry wash is on the books as well, in the plans, I guess. But there's existing pipelines and existing pump stations already. Like Morgan mentioned, they've been doing that reuse already.
Is Graveyard a gravity-fed reservoir?
No, the reuse water will be pumped to Graveyard. Are there any other questions?
Maybe you could just touch on, what I found fascinating the other day is this system operates for a period of time while we wait for our future Warner Valley Reservoir to come on board. And I found it fascinating, the reasoning behind that. Can you just share a little bit of that?
The reasoning behind Warner Valley.
The reasoning that it works even before Warner
even
Valley
before.
comes online.
Yes. So we see the immediate benefit of the ag exchange from this system. We can produce, and the pointer won't work on the screen there, but as we move from Ash Creek's lagoons into Hurricane, we pass Interstate Rocks Pit, we pass a golf course, we pass the Hurricane Canal Company and other major users of Virgin River water. And as we can displace the water that they're using, it keeps more water in our Quail Creek pipeline feeding our reservoirs. And so we do see that immediate benefit.
So Warner would just add additional benefit when it comes online.
Yes.
As a
The ability
type
to
1
store.
storage, right?
Maybe just a comment. I'm looking at it from a road perspective, and this pretty much touches every main road in St. George and Washington. So, that'll be a major project, not only just from a cost standpoint, but just trying to move people around during construction of a 48-inch steel pipeline. It's a major project. I just want to recognize that. We're looking at Washington Dam Road, Washington Fields Road, some of the busiest roads in our city. So it's not lost on you. I just wanted to make the comment.
Yes, well,
Put it on the record here.
and I do have to give a recognition to your staff as well. We've had the chance to meet with them and coordinate with them, and all of Washington City has been incredible to work with, and we're grateful for that.
Does the Conservancy District cover all those associated costs?
For the studies that we're doing right now and the construction?
For the construction
Yes, short answer, yes, it will be.
that's the short answer. What's the long one?
I'm not in charge of funding.
The spending.
Maureen?
Yeah, so we are covering, the Water District is covering the conveyance components. Let me go back. We'll stay here. The conveyance components, as well as Dry Wash Reservoir, Warner Valley Reservoir, and Chief Toker Reservoir. And with the conveyance components comes also pump stations. St. George City is covering costs for the upgrade at the St. George Regional Water Reclamation Facility, and then also Graveyard Wash Reservoir. But we are coordinating on Graveyard, so there's some cost sharing there. And then Ash Creek Special Service District covering costs with Confluence Park, and then their mechanical upgrade at the lagoons. And then to close out the treatment side with the Advanced Water Purification Facility and Demonstration Facility. We're coordinating with the program partners on that, but I think that'll ultimately be Water District.
Where do you anticipate that being located?
We're thinking the demonstration facility, it can be demobilized. It doesn't need to be at the full-scale Advanced Water Purification Facility location. So we're thinking on the east side, and we're thinking having a garden component with it. We have the St. George right by our office garden that's really popular. For the full-scale Advanced Water Purification Facility, we are thinking at the Ash Creek location, because once Ash Creek does their mechanical upgrade, they don't need all of the land for the lagoons as well as the crops. And so there's already going to be pre-disturbed land, which makes life a little bit easier for construction. So that's what we're thinking for location. And it's nice because it's right in between our two drinking water reservoirs. And so that little yellow pipeline that connects to that black existing pipeline between Sand Hollow and Quail, that's what is going to help with the potable reuse, to get the advanced purified water into that pipeline and then ultimately into our drinking water reservoirs. And then for funding as well, I want to note that between the program partners, we've secured over $250,000 in funding. So 200 million of that is a loan, and then 50 million of that is grants. I will say though, with this change in administration, they are clawing back some of those funds. So we are watching that very, very closely.
Is Chief Toker Reservoir, is that agricultural alone?
Yeah, so that's secondary storage, and so that is going to be from the Ash Creek system. So it's a firming project. We had a lot of water that we were losing just to natural seepage. So piping it and putting it in Chief Toker Reservoir, and ultimately being able to pipe up from Confluence Park reuse water to that reservoir as well. And then the big exchanges we'll see on the east side is with the Tokerville secondary water system. They're currently using really pristine spring water that needs simple chlorination and you can drink it. So don't want to be putting that outdoors if we don't need to. And then as well as Virgin River water with Laverkin. We'll be able to do that exchange and get more Virgin River water.
Chief Toker Reservoir, it was brought online. One of the major reasons was to increase the culinary yield.
Yes, yep, through those exchanges. So even though it's storing secondary water, it will be able to deliver it to areas that are using drinking water outdoors. Yep.
So Morgan, your prior slides mentioned the year 2042.
Yeah.
But there's a lot that needs to happen to get to that. When would the Ash Creek system upgrade to their mechanical system? And
Yeah, so we've been discussing with that with them. As you can imagine, there's a lot of modeling that goes into this, and sometimes it's ever changing as we respond to municipal partners and their plans. Right now, what we were originally anticipating 2030, but right now we're seeing it's going to be closer to 2035 is when they'll
For
do the
Ash
mechanical upgrade at Ash Creek.
and they built quite the farm culture for a sewer district. They look and feel like farmers out there, right?
Yeah.
They're willing to walk away from that.
So we have heard that there are municipal partners on the east side that are wanting to maintain some of that, and I think Ash Creek is as well, which we are proponents of open space. So yeah, coordinating with them for sure will be on the books so that we can keep some of that green space, which I think will be doable because, as I mentioned, when you're not treating to type 1 standards and you're not discharging, which is what Ash Creek is doing, it just takes a lot of land mass for evaporation and then irrigation for the treatment of that water. So when they go to the mechanical, it's going to be on a much smaller footprint. So, any other questions? We'll get back to where we were.
So you said that you're doing studies right now for the groundwater optimization.
Yeah.
And so you're anticipating that you might be able to be using more water in 2027. Are you close to finishing those studies or for the groundwater optimization?
Yeah, so we've grouped them. I think there's about 5 to 7 groups. And my understanding is right now we are focusing on the Sand Hollow Aquifer and then the Gunlock Aquifer. I think we're going to move next to Snow Canyon Aquifer. And so those are underway, and each municipal partner it's more municipal partners that have these water rights. The district has more surface water rights, municipal partners have more groundwater rights. And so it is anticipated that we will be able to pump more of the groundwater under existing water rights that the municipal partners have. We've been very good stewards of making sure we're not mining our aquifers, so taking more water out than can be replenished. But those studies will let us know, can we utilize existing water rights more? And so it is an assumption in the 20-year plan, the amount of water we'd get, but Bowen Collins also helped with that and coordinated with the municipal partners to compare water rights. Any other questions? Any major heartburn that you see on the screen? I know it's hard.
I actually really appreciate the questions and the comments on this because there will be a certain amount of disruption.
Yeah.
And then this is a massive undertaking for our entire community, and there's a lot of additional funds that will need to be allocated towards this project. But I think the short answer is Washington City directly won't be paying for this infrastructure, but we will be benefiting in that our wholesale partner provider will be able to move the water that goes down our drains, treat it, pump it back, and then ultimately I think we'll have a big storage component at some point with Warner, which I think we can have some conversations about more conversations about what that looks like. But this is exciting, and I love the fact that as we're able to go through a big topic, and we're a few years into this 20-year plan, but we
know.
can, I was gonna say break it up into bite sizes, but amounts that we can swallow, I think, with, as we're
Fire
talking
hose.
water, but
Yeah.
this is exciting, and the planning and then the construction of this system is gonna be, I know with the Water District Board, we're allocating a significant funding for the modeling and the easements, and in the future, the studies, and then we'll work towards the construction as well.
Yeah.
Council, on this side, any additional comments or questions for Morgan or Trinity?
Thank you. And this will be part of, just so you know, to understand the full picture, I mentioned permitting. So these alignments will essentially be submitted to the federal agencies. We'll show them the whole study. And it's going to be through the public permitting process. There's going to be surveys on these alignments. We're thinking 2 to 3 alignments will make it into what we call an environmental impact statement. And so there's a lot of variables that will go into choosing the alignment, but we will continue to coordinate with you and appreciate your feedback and staff feedback as we work through what will ultimately be the preferred. So,
Yeah.
okay,
Well done, Morgan, thank you.
appreciate
Trinity,
it.
good to see you again.
Anytime. Thank you.
All right. We're about the top of the hour. Power Director Rick Hansen is now going to present to the council on a power capital facilities plan and impact fee. Mr. Hansen.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Another exciting topic for you.
It just keeps getting better tonight.
I don't know, I think I'm on the reverse order or something here, so. Our last impact fee and facilities plan was back in 21, 22-ish. And so we don't need any, the purpose of tonight is just to get you kind of where we're at. And then if you're comfortable, then we'll work with Tara and Jeremy and schedule the public hearing and official adoption of the new impact fees. So let me see if I can get the screen to share. Cool. And I've already managed to. So again, there's no action tonight. Just give a little background as well. The Power Boards reviewed both of these documents, and on January 7th, 25, recommended to the council to adopt both the impact fee facility plan as well as the impact fee as presented. ICPE did the capital facilities plan and the impact facility plan, alphabet soup, and UFS did the impact fee analysis for us. So they're the same two companies that's done the previous studies, same methodologies were used, basically just updated. And as you can imagine, there's been a couple things that's happened since the last capital facilities plan. One, the Grapevine substation site was firmed up. It used to, the previous plan had it much closer to the freeway by where the hospital was going to go. And so it's moved further away, so the transmission lines are a little bit longer. And it's probably no surprise, costs have increased in that same period of time fairly significantly. So give you just a real sneak peek. Right now, the recommended increase for residential is 9%, small commercial also 9%, and large commercial about 20% on the impact fees. So,
Rick, what is the reason for the 20% on large? Is that more infrastructure based or?
We'll get to that if I can put a little pin in it for just a minute. Okay. And that's addressed in the slides. UFS was not able to be, originally planned on having them on Zoom tonight. They had conflicting with Mark, and so if we need to schedule that and you want that, we can certainly schedule another time to have them online as well. So I know you know this all too well. This whole process starts with a capital facilities plan. Notice the date of this is April of '24. We presented it to the council in July of last year. And then from that, as part of that plan, if it'll catch up, it lists the projects that we need to address on the system, both growth-related and non-growth related projects. And so from that, the impact fee facility plan comes out of that, which are projects solely targeted to growth. And again, this reads very similar to the last one. It just was updated, refreshed, whatever you want to call it. And the main crux out of this effort, this shows that we're continually to grow. And I'm almost there. Is this table here? These are the projects that were identified in the capital facilities plan that were related specifically to growth. And this table then feeds over into the impact study that UFS does. This particular document, and you've had all these documents in your packet, is kind of the gory details through this. And to answer Councilman Ivy's question a little better, is this table here where the dollars per installed transformer capacity, the residential and small commercial, these numbers, if you compare to the 2020 study, they went up $4 or $5. The large commercial went up about $50. And I think part of that, it's an average of the cost allocated to that. We've had a lot more smaller commercial come in that interim. And so it drives the average unit price down. So then you have to recover the same amount. So the net effect of that is it increases the large commercial.
We have the Grapevine site at the, we built the trailhead around it. The substation itself, on your summary of projects, it shows about 6.2, a little over 6.2 mil.
Correct.
What would it have been, and should we have built this sooner? Was there the need, and would it have been beneficial to build it sooner?
No, because.
And what would it have cost you think then, and the transmission lines? Those are kind of the two big things we're looking at now.
By far, out of the 11 million, you've got probably about 8 million dedicated to that project. Just the materials for the Grapevine sub are nearly double what they were 3 or 4 years ago. But you had also been spending money you don't need either.
Yeah.
Because if growth were to stop today, we wouldn't need Grapevine sub. So it's but the challenge for, I think the essential utilities, or whatever you want to call it, is you've got to have them there when the load hits. You can't wait until after the load to build them. So we have to be a little bit, we're always ahead of the game. Considering
that area where we've got some new retail popping up, we've got a hotel there, we've got an additional hotel coming on, we've got the auto mall coming on. Kind of what's your gauge on how soon we'll need to move forward with the substation?
Well, we are moving forward as we speak. We have the transformer regulators, circuit breakers, reclosers, battery system. Those materials are all on order. The transformer actually will be here this summer. Some of the other materials probably won't be until 26-ish.
So we're already piecing it together.
Correct. The transmission line, the structures are out to bid. We've got the bids back. ICP is evaluating those bids. So It'll be, the good news is we don't have a drop dead date that we have to have it done by. And it's somewhat of a greenfield area because there's no existing lines that we're conflicting with. And so from that regard, it's a simpler than if you were rebuilding in place. Like when we rebuilt part of Main Street sub, we had to take it down at a certain time of year. We had to have it back at a certain time of year. So we have a little more flexibility, but my target's probably in the 18 months to 2 years before we actually get it online. There's a switch for the transmission line just outside of the sub. It's a 40-week delivery. So a lot of these materials are about a year out, year to 18 months. So depending on how you happen to hit the vendors, sometimes you get lucky and you get a slot that's a little sooner, and sometimes you don't, and they go way out. And the overall scope is going to be determined by the longest lead time material to a certain extent, whether it's a small hardware part or a major part. So that help answer your question?
It does. How long would the period be if this were passed? How long would this rate be in effect? Could you estimate?
I think we look at it, if you look back at history, it's about every 3 years.
3 years. So we'd be looking at it again in 3 years. So what's important to me on the rates and the fees is that we stay competitive with our neighbors, especially on the commercial.
Got a slide on that.
I keep getting ahead of you, don't I? I'm just so excited about this electricity.
You just
I'll
wanna
let
get
you go
to-
ahead and speak, and then I'll ask
Yeah.
questions at the end.
So if you want to read, and go through the actual numbers, the calculation, this is the slide deck that UFS presented to the Power Board. We've already talked about a lot of these things. You're very familiar. It's no different for us than water, sewer, parks. The same philosophies of where you can use the funds remain the same. The one thing the UFS does that some of the other consultants over the years hasn't is this, they call it contribution margins. And so they do a calculation to try to basically give credit for monies that you would recover from the customers for the first few years. And they actually back that out of the impact fee. And that's, I think, one reason why ours is a little lower than some of the surrounding communities. So that's a unique feature that they do, that not a lot of the others. And so this table is basically the same as the previous one in the impact fee facilities plan, other than they just distribute it out by year a little different. And everything's kind of based on a 100 amp single phase residential service. Everybody else is kind of a multiple of that. It's done on a, just a mathematical. If you're a 200 amp, you're twice as much. If you're 400 amp, you're 4 times as much. And then that carries over in the calculation to the commercial as well. See if we can bring this up just a little. And so this is just the typical service sizes that we have. We run into different ones. If somebody falls in the middle, we can do an easy calculation, and that's just what it is there. To be quite honest, I was pleasantly surprised that the increases were pretty modest and much less than what I had anticipated going into it. And again, the biggest one, and I think the difference between the 480 and the 277 is probably a mathematical rounding, the difference between 19 and 20. And then this last to address the 9 versus the 20, they called it the usage pattern of that class of customer changed in the last 3 years. And going forward, I really think if you look at our service area, we're getting close. I mean, we're bumping up against our boundaries. We got the river on the south, St. George on the west, Hurricane on the east, and the Habitat on the north. There's not a lot of large tracts of land left. And so I think the next study would be, we would probably, instead of installing new substation sites. We can put a second transformer in at Grapevine Parkway and Staley are all set up to add capacity in existing ones. So I think they're well positioned where we need. So I don't really foresee, and again, if somebody plops in a really big load somewhere on the vacant land we have, that could change. But from what we've seen on the general plans and what's come through through staff developers, I really think that'll be the next phase that the city moves into, is that we would add capacity to existing locations. So. Questions? Is that enough? Is that?
What's the comparisons with others?
Oh, that's what everybody was waiting for, sorry. Okay, and the good news is, actually, this is one area that we do shine, I guess, if we want to call it that, compared to our neighbors. And so this column here, so like a 200 amp service on a home is 2773, would be going up to 3035. St. George is about 4,800, Santa Clara 3,800. Hurricane is the one that, depending on where you're at, we're about the same or slightly, they might be slightly less than us. However, my understanding is they are in the process of evaluating theirs as well, so depending. Overhead service? Doesn't matter. Yeah, it's just, because basically what the impact fee covers is the impact on the transmission and major distribution and substations. It doesn't really care if it's overhead or underground, it's on the line.
I think it's great to see this. I'm so glad you brought that up, Rick. I mean, this was powerful to me in the power board, is that, I mean, we're still not as much as most cities, and I think that comes to where, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, Rick, is that we're getting to the end of our boundary limits of infrastructure needed for the big infrastructure that affects this impact fees.
Yeah, because like I say, there's really not a whole lot of other places we can go. Like I say, unless a very large load dropped in somewhere, but we'd probably have a transmission line relatively close. I guess in the southern industrial area, if something very large came down there, but we have again a transmission line that comes up there. So, and it's getting close to being built out as well. So
but can't you upgrade the transformers in the substation to carry a little bit more load?
We can.
Rather than build a new substation.
The part of the challenge comes, you got to have the distribution to get it out. So the further away you are, the harder it is to serve. And then you have to build more feeders out. And sometimes those can be a real challenge. You know, building a new line through an existing subdivision or development.
So this is a question, maybe a little bit offline, or off from the capital facilities plan, but our transformers are a different rating than St. George and some of the other communities. Why are transformers not standardized, and is it due to the substations that we have, or is it just that's the system we chose?
The one odd voltage in the state of Utah is St. George. Their distribution voltage is 13,200. Virtually everybody else that I'm aware of is 12,470. They're the one that's different. So our distribution transformers, like with Dixie and Hurricane and Santa Clara, and with taps, you could use a St. George transformer on ours. The voltages wouldn't match exactly, but, and I'm guessing that voltage, I can't tell you where it came from. I'm guessing somebody 80 years ago got a deal on a transformer. And
that actually sounds about right, doesn't it?
That set the voltage, and from there on out.
I think they've done that at the water district a time or two also.
Well, I ran into this 2 years ago trying to get transformers, because you couldn't get transformers for 18 to 24 up to,
Right.
actually up to like 50 something months, right? And they're like, oh, if you had St. George transformer, you're fine, but Washington
That's 'cause
City
nobody's
transformer is
using
a different one. You can't use it, and doesn't work, so.
Yeah, no, actually, like I say, St. George is the one that is unique. Rocky Mountain Power
Well, their unique transformers were available when ours weren't for some reason. I don't know why.
Unfortunately, the three-phase are still over a year out, so.
Yeah.
Single phase are getting better, which is good news, so. So again, if you've got questions, you can reach out, and then if you want, if you're comfortable enough, we can, I don't remember all the noticing requirements, is it 2 weeks?
So here's where we are, council. Rick, you did a great job. I mean, and this is an experienced council that understands power. We appreciate Councilman Coates and liaison with that board there. This is pretty straightforward information. Council, I think now is probably the best time for you if you've got concerns or questions or direction for the department head. Now is probably the best time. And then he can determine whether or not he wants to stay for the full meeting. Because we put him on the end of the next meeting just in case we need extra time. And it sounds like we probably don't. And then if you're feeling comfortable with this, then what I would do is go ahead and schedule him out for our next meeting and notice that as an action item on the regular meeting. But now I think it's kind of your opportunity to give feedback and direction, feedback on the study, on the potential impact fee change.
So Mayor, I sat through Power Board on it and this one, so I'm comfortable moving forward with, and I have no further questions for Rick.
Councilman Belliston, thoughts? Councilman Ivy?
I do like the fact that our rates are among the lowest. You know, that's especially in the commercial
Nice
side.
to be able to say, because.
Yeah, especially commercial, we're trying to attract commercial business here. I'm sure that's a selling point. And affordable housing is always important because this is part of those fees. So, no, just one last question. UFS is the ones that performed the study. Or where are they based out of? Are they local or?
They are in the Midwest, and they actually work from home. And so depending on who you're talking to, you can get people from all over the country.
So
I
how do
think
we?
Mark's based in Illinois.
How do we decide who performs those studies? Is it just something that, do we put it out to bid, or is it just a?
We've actually elected to, they do a good job. They have all the data. It's actually cheaper for them just to update it. If we'd started off with a new firm, you'd have to do a lot of education, if you will. They are associated or partnered, I guess, I can't remember the term they use, with APPA. They're an affiliate of, how do we say that, Jeremy?
Yeah, they work with APPA, American Public Power, and with you. So we get a special price from them because of the co-op as well. I would say not all of the UAMP cities use UFS and have for a long time. But.
In fact, that's the reason they aren't on tonight, is because they're at a previous scheduled tonight with Heber. And that's an actual action item one, and so they felt like that one. And I felt like we could get through, and like I say, if we need to.
Well, you got the president of UAMPS.
Not the president.
Chairman of the board.
You got the chairman of the board for UAMPS. We're okay.
The only comment I would make, Mayor, it does seem like we do these often, but I like, from feedback from the council, we want to do them every maybe 3 years instead of 5 years, or even some of them have extended longer than that. So I like it because I think we're capturing the costs more real time as they happen. And then those increases aren't so large for people that are doing those. So I think that's why it feels like we're doing them more often, water, sewer, power, but there's some benefit in that as well. A lot of work.
Well, and we appreciate that as an elected body manager, and you and your staff getting those back to us and being in real time. I think it's helpful, and again, we're relatively familiar with this. So.
And it takes anywhere from 12 to 18 months to get from the start to the end. And what is the public notice requirement? Is it 2 weeks? Or can Tara help us?
Yeah, Tara would have to help you, but at least 2 weeks. So it might not be at our next meeting. It might be the one after.
Probably be the second February one, I would.
So we can look at, Tara, if you'll just give us direction if it can meet the noticing requirement for February 12th. Otherwise, we're looking at February 26th on the regular meeting.
I can get it on after the call.
Actually, let me double check one thing. I'm actually won't be here on the 26th unless Jeremy wants to wing it.
We'll be fine.
I have time to do the noticing.
We're
for the
coming
12th.
back from DC, so.
Tara, do you have an answer on the noticing on this item?
Can you hear me?
Kind of.
Oh, sorry, I'm not sure why my audio isn't working. I have time to get the noticing done by the 12th.
I thought you would.
Okay.
Great, we'll plan on the 12th. And you're here?
Yeah.
Great.
That one's fine. So, thank
We
you.
appreciate your work. Well done, Rick.
I give you just a quick update on the AMI.
Please.
Our data collection units are installed and operating. We have 2 meters on it, the test meters, and so they're in the process of evaluating, are they communicating properly? It's the police station and the rental house are the 2 meters that we have on it, so. Right now, we'll be in a testing phase. Steve's working, helping us getting the software or the file exchange between the various softwares going. And then we'll gradually roll out, and as we get the confidence in those exchanges, we'll accelerate.
And you
the-
said similar to our smart water meters, there'll be an app that people can monitor their power
Eventually, yes.
usage.
Eventually, yes.
That's great.
So,
Way to be forward thinking.
okay, well, thank you, appreciate it.
Okay, good meeting. We finished with a few minutes to spare. Council, let's call for a motion to adjourn and we'll reconvene at 6 p.m.
So made, Mayor.
Have a motion by Councilman Ivey, second by Councilman Coates. All in favor?
Aye.
The workshop meeting is adjourned. We'll be back in a little over 30 minutes for the regular meeting. We'll get started with our regular meeting here. Welcome, everyone. Thanks for being here tonight in the council chamber at Washington City Hall for our regular meeting. Today is January 22nd, 2025. Our meetings are streamed live at our website, washingtoncity.org/meetings, and they're also archived for viewing later. We'll start our meeting this evening with an invocation. We appreciate our partnership with the Interfaith Council, and this evening we'll have Brother Will Jones of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints start the meeting. Brother Jones.
Thank you. Our Heavenly Father, we are grateful to meet here this evening. We're grateful for the freedoms that allow us to be here together, for the freedom of assembly, for the freedom of speech, and for the form of government which we all enjoy. We're grateful for the first responders and for those cities who protect us, and for those city employees who help so much to maintain our way of life. Father, we ask Thee to bless this meeting, bless this city, that Thy Spirit may reign, that we may have wisdom from its leadership, and be guided as for those that will bless the population as a whole. We ask Thee for moisture, that we can have some rain that will sustain us throughout this summer. And this we ask in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, brother. If you'll please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Council, we do not have need to go to closed session this evening, so I'll turn to you for a motion to approve the agenda as outlined.
I'll move.
I have a motion by Councilman Belliston, second by Councilman Ivy. All in favor? The agenda is approved. As far as announcements, the Dogtown Half Marathon is this Saturday, January 25th. It's a 9 a.m. start. And those police officers wanting to jump in at the last minute, I'm happy to give you the free entry. And I don't think it's going to be as cold as it was this morning. That's the only thing I had on announcements, Council. Is there anything I may have missed? Okay, we'll move on to the next item of business. Any declarations of abstentions and or conflicts?
Yeah, Mayor, I have a conflict with 7B and 9A.
Duly noted. Thank you, Councilman. Anything else? Seeing none, we'll move on to the item that most of this crowd is here for this evening. This is an oath of office. This is a pretty special evening for us. I'd like to invite Chief Jason Williams to come forward and administer the oath of office to a new lieutenant. Chief Williams.
Thank you, Mayor, Council, City Manager. This is an exciting time for Washington City and our police department. As the city continues to grow, the department grows a little bit, and so does the leadership. And we're grateful to have this opportunity to swear in our new Lieutenant Josh Fonona. Took a little bit of arm wrestling with the city manager to get this done, kind of in between a budget cycle. I won't say who won, but I'm standing up here. So, but he's a good sport for helping us out with this. Josh has been with the city for quite a while. He started back in 2006, and he'll have to correct some of the dates if I get them wrong, but May of 2006, I believe, when Josh started in animal control. He then worked in our code enforcement division, and then in 2008, he went through the police academy and became a sworn law enforcement officer, and has been in patrol. He was our first canine handler for Washington City with Canine Hunter. He then moved into investigations and then promoted from investigations to a sergeant. Was a great sergeant in patrol and now a lieutenant. So we're super excited for him and for his journey, and we'll go ahead and get the swearing done. Not at, but to, I guess.
Winona,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support, obey, and defend
that I will support, obey, and defend
the Constitution of the United States
the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Utah.
and the Constitution of the State of Utah.
I do also solemnly swear
I do also solemnly swear
that I will support, obey, and defend
that I will support, obey, and defend
the laws and ordinances of Washington City,
the laws and ordinances of Washington City,
and I will discharge the duties
and I will discharge the duties
of my office with fidelity.
of my office with fidelity.
Congratulations. I will. With love. Good thing there's two.
Challenger time.
They're called butter bars, so they're a little slippery.
Hands still a little sore from that arm wrestle with the city manager, maybe.
Grip. All right. Very nice.
Thank you.
Lieutenant,
Yes,
would you just stay up here for a minute?
absolutely.
As you look at this body, and I know Chief jokes around, and it's part of this great culture that we have here. But as you look this way, I want you to look at this elected body, this legislative body. Our police department's top priority, and they don't just say that. That's why they budget for this kind of position. We're doing everything we possibly can to make sure that you have the resources that you need and the support that you need. I want you to just turn around for a minute and just look out at all of those who are here, your brothers in blue, your family. And for me, it just, we administered the oath of office to a few newer officers a few weeks ago. But you notice how this one just feels a little different? I mean, you've come up through the ranks and when Chief was talking about those different levels of service, those have all been a preparation for where you are now. And we had 6 fantastic candidates. And I love that I see those candidates here in the room supporting you, cheering you on, and like sustaining you. I just love that. This department means so much to us collectively. Would you just share a little bit about your experience over the years with Washington City and what it means to step into this new role today and to serve with this kind of support and this kind of brotherhood?
Yeah. Obviously a lot's changed since 2006. Our department's grown a lot, city's grown a lot. We've had a lot of different leadership and things. But this is the best we've ever run. We have the best group of guys we've ever had. I'm just honestly proud to be here and grateful to be able to serve everybody. So, it's nothing but support in our department for any direction you want to go. So we appreciate it for sure.
So one thing that I've heard about you over the years is that you're a high character guy. And can you just talk a little bit about why I might have been hearing that? Just talk about what drives you, and kind of what does that character element mean in policing, especially in today's environment?
Like you see them, they all do the same, so I don't think it's anything special per se to me. But when we get into these businesses. We spend a lot of time together. We risk our lives together. And so, I mean, I want to make sure that I'm doing everything that I can so that my guy next to me doesn't have to do it. So that's what's important to me.
I love it. I'd like to do things just a little bit different tonight, if you don't mind. I'd like for the elected body here and the city manager to come down, just kind of shake your hand and welcome you, get a picture with the chief and this body. Then we'll come back up here and then we'll invite your family and those within the department here to support you to come and get another picture. Fair enough?
Fair enough. Start. Thank you.
Let's get this picture. Chief and Lieutenant. We're going to go back up there and then we can provide this, those gaps here for First Lieutenant to come forward and we'll get another picture.
Roll in.
You wear a patch, a badge, a brother, Wade Blue, going up.
Kneel down, make me look a little taller, boys.
While you guys are coming up, you might find it interesting, if we've done the math right, this is the 5th oath of office that Josh Finona has taken in his career since 2006. That's pretty cool. So he's moved up through the different roles.
Squeeze on this side? No, we good? Some of the cameras. All right, cool. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Chief. Congratulations, Lieutenant.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, for being here tonight. Animal control, code enforcement, K-9, sergeant, and now lieutenant. All right, we'll move along here. Now that the important item is taken care of. Item 5 is the consent agenda. This consists of the approval of minutes, consideration to approve the minutes from the city council meetings of 1/8/25 and 1/14/25, and local consent, which is consideration to approve a hotel liquor license for Residence Inn located at 84 North Primavera Lane. If there's no clarification or brief discussion, I'm happy to entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Mayor, I'll make that motion. We approve the consent agenda as read.
Motion is made by Councilman Coates.
I'll second that, Mayor.
Second is made by Councilman Ivy. All in favor? Any opposed? The consent agenda is approved unanimously. Item 6, conditional use permit. This is consideration to approve a conditional use permit C-24-19 for construction of 3 retail buildings located at Washington Parkway and Sandy Talus Drive. The applicant is Rosenberg Associates, Community Development Director, Community Development Assistant Director. It's a new title, Eldon. Congratulations. We'll present to the council. Mr. Gibb.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. Conditional use permit approval is required for new development adjacent to Washington Parkway. The property is currently zoned PCD, designated as neighborhood commercial. The property to the north, east, and south are zoned PCD. The property to the west is zoned C2 and PUDR. Phase 1 of the project is located on the north end of the parcel and is shown as a retail tire and automotive service center. The building is approximately 10,500 square feet and 26 feet tall. The building includes a 3,000 square foot retail office area and approximately 7,500 square feet of enclosed shop, which will be used to service vehicles. Parking is adequate with the proposed 24 parking stalls. Phase 1 improvements will include adding 8 feet of asphalt to the width of the parkway, along with the needed curb and gutter to tie into the improvements to the south, which is where the existing car wash is located. These roadway improvements will be done in Phase 1 and along the entire property adjacent to Washington Parkway. Phase 2 is a 6,700 square foot building, 28 feet, 8 inches tall. The building is shown as a retail building for off-road motor vehicles and includes indoor, outdoor inventory displays. Parking is adequate with the proposed 28 parking stalls. Phase 2 will include a right-in, right-out access onto Washington Parkway. Phase 3 is a 10,000 square foot commercial retail building. This building is 28 feet 2 inches tall and includes multiple tenants. The tenants are unknown at this time. The tenant to the farthest south will have a drive-through window that accommodates stacking, wrapping behind the building as shown in the exhibit. Parking is adequate with the proposed 41 parking spaces. The applicant is proposing to build out the 10-foot asphalt trail adjacent to the parkway. Required parking for the entire project is 87 stalls, and the proposal includes 93. The building elevations and landscaping for the development are aesthetically pleasing. The Planning Commission reviewed this request on January 15th, 2025, and unanimously recommended approval of C-24-19, allowing the proposed new commercial development with the findings and condition as outlined on to City Council. That concludes my report, and I'm happy to answer any questions you may have at this time.
Council, any questions for staff before we invite the applicant?
Clarifying question, Mayor. So we've got a tire and an automotive, then we've got a retail off-road ATV. Wouldn't it be prudent to know the third tenant before a conditional use permit is granted, or is this typical? Or we don't know who the...
Yeah, it's typical. All we're approving is the site layout, building elevations, and landscaping. That building could build out as one tenant to fill the whole use, or could come and provide 4 individual tenants.
Okay, that's good for me.
Great question, great answer. Councilman?
Yeah, so one of the things that got brought up in the public comment during Planning Commission was just the noise from the tire shop to the adjacent residential. I'd love to hear from the applicant at the appropriate time how they might address that situation. I mean, I think it's something we need to look at in our code. I mean, when those type of uses are adjacent to residential, they can be quite loud with their air guns.
Is that building 1?
Yes. Yeah.
Phase 1?
So it's just something I'd like to hear how we can help mitigate some of that sound concern brought up during the Planning Commission.
Great.
That was a concern for me too, because it sounded like they were going to plan on doing some work behind the building, if I'm understanding what was said in the Planning Commission.
Ask a question, Mayor.
Councilman Henderson.
I have the same concern, and I know during Planning Commission, they talked about the rock wall and the center block wall being deflecting the sound. But I went over there today to look at it and talk to a couple of neighbors, and the existing block wall is only 3 to 5 courses high from their side, so that won't block anything. And so, I mean, that's, course is 8 inches, so it's 26 inches with the cap to 42 inches tall. And so I'd just like to have somebody talk about that a little bit, because, I mean, those impact wrenches will be going literally 40 feet away from their back door, 40, 50 feet. So anyway, I'd like to, those things are loud. And so I'd like to hear a little bit more about the sound deflection or whatever you guys have in mind, so.
And I'm not familiar with the decibel level that is allowed through our city code, but I need to, is that something you can speak on that?
Our city code doesn't have a measurement of decibels component. It has a more subjective determination of whether it's a nuisance sound. And then it does look at time of day as more of a, if there's a standard, the standard's more time of day than it is decibel level.
Great. Any additional comments or questions for staff before I invite the applicant to come forward to address the comments that have been made, and anything else I'd like to share? Thank you, Eldon. Well done on the staff report. Would the applicant or the applicant's representative like to come forward and maybe address the discussion that you've heard and anything else you'd like to present to the body? And then just, we know you, but state your name.
Sure. Jared Bates with Rosenberg Associates. So the first comment was about the noise. So a couple things. I know that obviously they'll be working indoors. They're not going to be outside changing tires. I mean, they're going to take stuff outside, but for the most part, they'll be indoors. There's a vertical separation from the elevation of where the building will be at versus where the existing houses are at. So you've got there's the building. You've got the area behind it for tire storage and things. There's the rock wall, so there's an elevation difference there, and then there is the privacy wall that's there. So that's what we have as far as things that would provide some noise, some help with the noise. And what you guys mentioned about the noise ordinance or basically time of day, they're not going to be working past probably 6 p.m., which is normal business hours. So that would be I would think that'd be the biggest thing is time of day. And again, it's a commercial roadway here, so it should be understood by the neighbors that it's a commercial area that's there. So unfortunately, it's been vacant for a long time, so they've kind of maybe been used to something different, but it's a commercial area, so I think that's within the uses.
Good point, sure, Councilman.
So in Planning Commission, one of you said that the purpose of those awnings on the back was so you could work underneath them.
I don't think they'd be changing tires outside. I mean, Mitch is here. Mitch, do you want to speak to that? Sorry, Mitch, it's his shop, so he knows.
Welcome, Mitch, and if you'll just share your name for the record and just address however you'd like to.
Yeah, I'm Mitch Roberry. So the main purpose of that is a little bit of storage and for deliveries. So when we do have deliveries, we can have there'll be a box truck or a larger truck that will come in. Some of the tires, just as we are unloading, you're not going to load those and put them in the building right away. So we do store them, have them out of the sun, have them out of the elements. And then that is for when we do have a camper or something come in, that we can get them back in there. So if they have to, let's say that there's a tire on that left side, that driver's side or the passenger side, we would have them pull in accordingly so that minimize any of that sound. We would be able to have that sound bounce off of their vehicle towards our building, and then we'll go into the building and take care of it from there. So for the one or two, I mean, we're not going to be doing trailers and pickups and boats all the time, but it's to help accommodate those number of items.
So that's just more of an occasional use.
Correct, yeah,
there.
Okay. Yep, and then mainly just as we unload tires, we'll store them there for a period until we have time to get them into the building where they're stored.
That makes sense. Thank you.
Not to argue, those are 4 roll-ups with vehicle lifts and everything else.
Yeah.
I mean, I've driven past.
For sure.
Driven past Discount Tire. The doors stay open all day long.
Yeah.
Same with Big O tires.
Yep.
The doors stay open all day long. So I mean, I think there still is going to be a fair amount of noise, right?
Yeah, so the 3 from north to south, those are actually mechanic lifts. Those are 2-post and 4-post lifts. So those will be vehicles that are brought in, lifted up, and the doors will be closed to be worked on by a mechanic. That south door is only for inventory in and out. And then all the doors on the front, those are all the tire bays for tires only. So we have thought that through to accommodate what you're speaking of, for sure. So that we can close that.
Sorry.
Councilman Ivey.
So on your base, do they should line up from front to rear? Do you anticipate pulling cars through to the back to exit around once they're worked on?
Yeah, so we can go through on a couple of them all the way through, but they're like that far north one. We would, roll a car around, pull it in, and then lift it. And, let's say we were, doing some chassis work or anything on that, or doing a transmission work or something of that nature, it'd be lifted, and at that point, the doors would be closed up, so.
Communication with the residents that live nearby there?
I spoke with them briefly last week.
The meeting,
Mhm.
planning commission?
Yep. Yeah.
So do you see sorry, Mayor, a concern with maybe increasing that block wall in the back to 6 feet? Because doesn't our code require 6-foot commercial block wall around commercial? I thought it.
Drew, do you want to speak to that?
Yeah, the 6-foot wall is to block headlights if it was level ground. Because I have a rockery wall there, I probably wouldn't, so, yeah, that's what the intent of the 6 foot between the residential and commercial is, for headlight blockage whenever you have that, so the neighbors don't have that, being put on them every time someone's in and out. So with the elevation change, you could go by code, they'd have to put a 6 foot, but they'd put it at the bottom of the hill and wouldn't do any good.
Yeah.
So the other thing, and maybe this is more of a question, is the applicant open to putting in a block wall along that back edge to help protect with that?
Yeah, I mean, I'm open to it for sure. If, depending on just.
And speak right to that mic there, Mitch.
Oh, yeah. So, yeah, I'm open to that, and looking at that, like I talked to some of the residents last week, we want to make sure we can accommodate.
You want
where
to
we
change
can.
your tires.
Well, we want to accommodate where we can. I'm local, we're not here to come and, do any of that kind of stuff. So if it helps and eases, but at the same time, whatever, works for us as well, so.
Jared, speaking to the mic, and
Yes,
you've been here
so
before.
question, can you pull up the site plan real quick? I want to see where the property boundary is at. I think it's in the middle of the hill. Is that shown, or the other one that has the topo on it? Maybe you don't, I don't know.
No, it doesn't have it.
Okay, right, so I think what you're talking about is, Drew mentioned, hey, the wall would end up going probably on the bottom of the hill, so that there's kind of, is that, is there something different you'd want to do, maybe?
Saying it would, I'm just going that a wall would have to be provided, but the wall is for the headlight. So again, it wouldn't be any good to put it down here at the bottom.
You're saying based on code, but I think the council's talking about just kind of based on that transition from the.
I'm just thinking maybe it might help with some of that noise.
Mitigate.
I know sound carries up and the lots sit up above this. It's just.
Right, so there's a good picture that kind of shows, they're a ways back and they're up, so. Yeah, it's almost like, I don't know if it did want them to, it'd make more sense to give them money credit to go to put towards their wall if they want to adjust their wall versus build a whole new wall on the bottom.
Some may want it and some may not, because they're going, well, I don't want a 6 foot. They won't be able to see. I guess their point, I'd recommend that if they're amiable and you guys want to, you just say that they approach anybody behind the tire shop. I don't know if the other ones, unless you're thinking all three of them, I'm just going if it's.
I was just thinking tire shop because of the noise with the ratchets, but.
Sounds like you guys are willing to do that if one of the particular ones, even though it's what I'd hate to have happen, and we know it will. 3 of them will say yes, but they're all, it's 2 of them here, this one not, then this one yes, but I guess that is what it is, right?
How many lots back up?
You won't see it, the building will block it.
What's that?
You'll block it from the street, you won't see it.
That's true, so I guess it won't matter, but if they're amiable and that's what the council, I'd say go ahead if they,
Powers
just to add on.
sometimes I've been around them too, where they're, doing things out back too that can get a little loud.
So I just have a question on the elevation. It looks like there's a rockery wall. Yeah, I'm not sure the elevation that level?
I don't think it's rock. I think it's a slope,
It's just a
and
slope
they
of
just
rock.
lined it with rock.
They just
You see them do around here a lot. This one was done years ago.
so that, I'm
Yeah,
just-
do you roughly know what are you guys gonna are you going down any, or are you on this existing ground? I'm sure you've done some elevations
There
already.
is some cut, it's kind of how we had it graded up there on the north end, to try to flatten
Are
it
you
out.
taking stuff out or bringing material
I
in?
think we're bringing it down on the north end, I think towards the south end, just to kind of level it out. 'Cause you see, as you go, this is looking, on the right is the north, and on the left is the south, so.
Yeah, I just wanted to get a good view from this street view so you could see. I'm not sure exactly where this picture is on the Google, Earth on that and where it's looking, but
But you're building to the base of that rock slope, right?
That's right.
Okay.
Right,
Yes.
that's part of the design. We kind of wanted to stay out of that area because even though the property line is within that rock slope, it's kind of sketchy, so we want to stay away from it if possible.
Mayor, my understanding from what Councilman Bellison said is when Green Springs Auto was approved for conditional use permit, one of the conditions was that their air compressor and other noisy things were on the inside, not on the outside. Maybe we could make a condition like that. I
That's
mean,
reasonable.
air compressors inside or in a little shed or something.
Yeah, everything's inside, so we don't have any capabilities in reality to do anything on the exterior other than on the occasional trailers that we would have to put a hose out there and then we'd bring it in. So there isn't anything that would be on the exterior.
So,
My question still is with the elevation change, because this is an additional cost if this were to be conditioned, and that's always something we have to be aware of. We don't want to drive prices up if it's not going to be effective. My question is what's the opinion that this wall would actually minimize or lessen the sound? I'm just trying to be very practical in this approach, saying that we have an elevation change, you're going to go down, because it might be a hindrance too if it were. I'm just wondering what the
Block walls will suppress sound. I mean, we just put them down I-15 for that reason.
right. I'm just wondering with the elevation change whether they'd be that effective. It's really kind of hard to see that.
They would, because this is lower in elevation. If this was higher in elevation, it wouldn't make a hill of beans bit of difference. Where they're lower, it will knock sound quite a bit out.
I think what Kurt's saying is if we put the rock-
Councilman.
Sorry, excuse me, Councilman Ivy,
We know
apologize.
each other well, sorry.
Sorry, so if we put the rock wall at the base of the development, it would be the top of the wall might be at the same elevation or slightly lower than the top of the existing rock slope there. So
Yeah, so
we're saying
it's
the rock
hard to
slope is
put it at the
same.
base, but where's that property line if you put it on the top of the what we're calling a rock wall or rock slope?
From what I recall, it's like between half and 3/4 of the way up the wall. is
So
where
you'd
that's
have
at.
to meet with the neighbors there and just see if they want to do something and give them a credit or something if that were the case.
And that was my thought.
The rock slope, rock wall, your property line basically bisects that.
And it's not.
That makes
like
it tough.
Totally parallel either, right? So there's some visual things.
The other thing, part of the purpose of the awning is, it's not just an awning, so obviously we'll have an awning. We will have rock wall up halfway of that with gates, and those will be enclosed, so that will help minimize any sound in that as well. So it's not like we'll be just out in the open, right on that rock ledge. We will have that awning with an enclosure, and that's where any of that, extra work with the trailer, or a boat or something of that nature would be. So that can help, minimize some of that sound bouncing off.
And we're reading that right, Drew, that this is a 20-foot setback?
Yes,
Am I
that's
reading
what the
that?
commercial
It's a 20-foot setback from the
requires.
middle from the property line?
Yeah, it looks like it's up at the top of the wall. Yeah, I guess it is.
Yeah, when you look at it, you can see and again, these white lines are imposed by the county as roughly, but we all know they're a plus or minus, sometimes 1 or 2 feet. But you can then, right next to the white line, you can see the top of the block wall running right along with that white line. And that would be the area we're talking about. If that's what they've offered, the council wants to impose, that they can go ask any of those people that want to add on to the top of their wall and either do it I don't know, whatever you guys want to work out, but
My experience in projects like this is the idea of the owner, the developer approaching the owners, because like we did the Dino Dash car wash in St. George, and this was the case where, there's a really high slope with rock on it that you really can't deal with. And two of the guys accepted money and extended their wall up. Two of them didn't, and that was the way, it didn't bother anybody. No one's impacted, other than whoever wants to.
But it is a legitimate attempt to mitigate any sound nuisance.
Good idea.
Okay.
And that's the best bang for the buck, because they already have footings. It's just a matter of a few more courses and grout it, and you're done.
So a couple of the walls added like 2 feet,
Yeah.
what they ended up doing, and so they wanted it, and I think it made everything work. Otherwise, we were in this situation to where there really wasn't a good way of
I
dealing
like
with it.
that idea.
And you feel good about that, Mitch? Feel like you're being treated fair and being fair to the neighbors? Speaking of that, Mike.
Yeah, like I said before, I mean, want to make it work. They had some concerns last week, and obviously I want to respect those, where we can.
Okay. So any additional questions?
I got another
Councilman Coates?
question, and it might be for the applicant or staff, but typically you have two accesses, and based on the phase lines, it's showing you're not building that second access right now. And is that the case?
Yeah, that's as we have it drawn. I think based on the parking count and the sort of trips that are generated with the tire shop versus like the retail that's on the south end, that one for sure you have to have that second entrance.
John, do you have any thoughts on that, on Councilman Coates'
Drew,
comments?
can you pull up City Code 9-10A-7?
So I just, and I also don't want a piecemeal. I mean, this is one of our main roads. It'd be nice just to get all that frontage at least and the access built with the trail. Everything else can come at a later date as they decide to do each building, but get the roadway at once. But I don't know how that works with the applicant versus the owners of the property. I know
This is
it's
a
a
really
little bit different because you don't own all the property, correct?
Well, the applicant is for all three phases, right? And you're looking to go into phase one.
Yeah, so it'll be the entirety of the property.
You'll own the entirety of the property.
Well, we'll start on phase one and go forth.
Thad, do you want to go first, or you want John to go first?
I think we need to read the relevant city code so we can correct the conversation to the code. I don't know exactly which.
And remind us your title
zone
is city?
this is. 10B-7.
City attorney?
City attorney. So in all of our commercial zones, there's a section called landscaping and fencing, and you'll see subsection B there, 10B-7-B. Except in the front yard setback area, 6-foot high solid decorative fence or wall shall be installed and maintained along the boundary line of any agricultural or residential zone. So I interpret that to mean that the back of this is required by city code to have a wall.
So where that's probably a 6-foot wall now, or I'm just thinking.
It's not now. It's only like, it's like 3.
So then it'd be
The conversation of where to locate it is still really relevant, and within the purview of the council is, do we require them to just increase the one that's on the boundary line or build a 6-foot one that's actually not gonna be the 6-foot one on the bottom of the slope will be lower than the 3 courses up at the top, right?
I just didn't want, so a total of 6 foot, I just didn't want it to be 6 foot now and then go above that and require a conditional use permit and engineering and everything. Awesome. It sounds like that will work.
We value that. Thank you for referring us to code. If you'll just step aside, I want to just get John Hinkey's input on this. He's boots on the ground and proves. Would you speak to both your thoughts on the wall? And I know that's a little bit more community development, and also to the ingress egress at the councilman. And if you'd like to just speak to the ingress egress, that's fine too. But I know you know more than you say a lot of times. So there you go.
Not at all. I only know what I talk about. My thoughts on the wall would be that, extending the wall up there at the top would help mitigate.
The existing wall would.
Yeah, would help mitigate additional sound issues and stuff, so.
The challenge is it's not on their property.
So, yeah.
Okay.
I think they can
It might
extend the wall
it
or
might
put
be
in a new
on
one.
property line. I'm not exactly sure.
If I'm wrong, but part of that code is not just, part of the reason is with the 6-foot wall is residential foot traffic, combining with commercial, right? It's trying to keep that separation. And I don't think you got a lot of hikers that are gonna be climbing on that rock slope and, walking around the backside, but I mean, that was the.
Yeah, the city code doesn't have an intent statement, but I think that we can assume, like you are, that when the city council adopted this, they felt that when a commercial project built next to agricultural residential, that they should keep the impact of commercial
Buffer.
on their side of the wall, essentially, right? And so that subsection is in every one of the commercial zone codes, and so it's a consistent requirement for all of the commercial zone categories.
And we're going to circle back to the wall, but if you'll just address the councilman's questions just and thoughts about the access.
Yeah, we looked at the access points. I considered phase one as I looked at it as a single lot, single business. And so therefore I looked at it as generally would only require the single access point as a single business on a single lot. So I can see the point, obviously, if they were to come in and go 2 phases or whatever, yeah, we would want those both access points in at the same time, but with just the one business going in, I felt the single entrance would be sufficient.
On other developments, we required on these high-profile roads to do it at once, so we don't have a patch job down our roads is all. So that's the reason why I bring it up. So.
Fair statement, yep.
So can I ask, because it's phase 1, 2, and 3, are we tying the conditional use permit together for all of them? Or?
Yeah, and this is not uncommon. In fact, I encourage people to do it because the conditional use permit is about the buildings. The reason we do this is the aesthetics. We want to see what it looks like. The uses don't matter. They have to meet the code.
I don't have a problem with that.
Yeah, I'm just.
Phase 2, then
If they modify it.
Whole project together, are they just going to bring phase?
Well, just whatever they change. Like if all of a sudden somebody comes in and wants to lease the whole building, but hey, I want it to look this way, they'll have to come back and that new appeal if they're just going inside. But again, let me just go back. I'm just going to throw this out because I still think we ought to give those neighbors an opportunity. Some may not want that wall to be that 6 foot. In this case, and the only reason I say that is because I have an elevation change here of this rock, and that's why I don't want them to be bound by something here that they may not want sitting in their backyard.
I agree. I wouldn't want a 6 foot.
I just want to throw that out. And again, and the intent of that language.
Noisy, I wouldn't want it.
The intent of that language is if I got flat ground between 2 lots, yes, absolutely, that's going to be the thing.
Yep.
So,
Council, and I think I'm kind of reading this as generally you're coming to a consensus on what the applicant has acted like they're open to. Does somebody want to kind of summarize that and help us move this along?
Mayor, I just suggest have the applicant go visit with the HOA and, hey, is this something that you would like? And then it doesn't make any sense to me for you to build a 6 foot block wall down at the bottom of that riprap wall or, slope.
Halfway up the slope.
Yeah.
Doesn't make any sense, but it would make sense if they want you to add to that wall they already have and help mitigate it.
So how do we do that in a condition, right?
That's the question.
It's a tough thing to say, hey, go talk to the neighbors, and you can say, yeah, I talked to them, but so.
The HOA.
Thad, then Jared. Come on up, Jared.
This thing here is the entire boundary of residential is the Kings Row Estates HOA. They did send an HOA representative. And one of his ideas was to just increase the height of the wall on the upper slope side, right? And so he came to a planning commission. He's not here tonight. He may have understood that would be the only hearing. The code is written as a shall statement, and it's modifying language is the boundary line of any agricultural residential zone. And so if you're going to allow the code to be relaxed, I think we just need to make sure that it's clear in your motion that that's what you're doing.
I don't think we would relax the motion. I think we'd have to say that you got to go meet with the HOA and work out a wall with them.
Yeah, I was going to say, I would assume the wall would happen when the construction plans are getting the CO on the building. That would have to have been resolved. And so if these guys would need a letter or some sort of proof saying they've worked that, I think that you deal with it at that point.
Okay. Thad, do you have thought on that? Construction
The
drawings?
HOA has been speaking on behalf of the boundary, on that boundary line, but I agree with what was said, which is if a specific lot owner signs something that says I waive my right to a 6 foot wall, then maybe your motion would say that would be acceptable. have to build it at that location.
So staff, we're going to turn to you just a little bit. And of course, this council has plenty of experience in land use, but we want to get this motion, this condition right.
So can I ask about the phase line? Is that something the owner wants to do at this time or no on the additional roadway along Washington Parkway?
Jared, are you repping on all three phases on this? Councilman Coates is asking about the access along all three phases, access off of Washington Parkway, if you're open to just doing construction on that all at once. Did I rephrase?
Nope, that's perfect.
That'd be up to you. Are you okay with that? I mean, I think the question was, I think we would have stuck with what John would have said, hey, if it's a single business now, I think we're adding asphalt out there anyway, so we shouldn't be tearing anything up.
Yeah, that's fine. It's just, again, my biggest complaint about our city is we sit in piecemeal little bit by little bit on these major roads, and I don't like it.
And then I get the text, why did we just tear this asphalt up that we just put, and I say, I don't know, ask Councilman Coates.
And I say, ask Councilman Bellis.
If it's a deal breaker, obviously.
I think, council, I don't know if it's a deal breaker.
It's not a deal breaker. If it's something that makes sense to you and it's a little more, it's more money up front, but long-term, it's a better looking product for you. So that's why I asked the question if it wasn't a big deal for you.
No, I mean, I guess I'm not opposed to it. It just, when we go to build phase two, that's where that asphalt can get damaged. So if we push that out all the way to that secondary lot on the end of that lot, we're gonna have damaged asphalt after we are constructing phase two. It happens.
That's
So,
fine. We can move on. It's not a deal killer for me.
but, I mean, not that, yeah, just kind of an idea so.
Thank you. Is somebody
Mayor, I'll make a motion.
wanting to make a motion? Thank you, Councilman Coates. Have you got kind of some verbiage in mind?
Mayor, I'll make a motion that we approve as conditional use permit C-24-19 for construction of all three retail phases, building located on Washington Parkway and Sandy Tallis Drive, with the findings and conditions provided by staff, with the additional condition that the 6-foot block wall be either raised or the existing rock wall on this west side be raised to 6 foot to meet city code, or get a waiver from the adjacent property owners saying they do not want that.
Can I second that one, the suggestion of second condition? The second condition would be that any noisy equipment or noisy operations in the building.
Amend my motion to be a second additional condition to be that. I forgot about that one.
Well, will you just repeat it, Councilman, so
Yeah,
it's clear?
so condition number, the second additional condition would be to any noisy air compressors and stuff are inside a structure.
And that if there's noisy mechanic operations, that be contained within the building with the door shut.
Right.
I like it, but we've got two council members making a really good motion together. Tad, are you comfortable with the motion made as such? It's clear, it's recorded.
Yeah, I'll agree to that.
And you accept the language that Councilman Belliston?
A little bit of subjectivity in it, but that's okay. I think the intent is that we just need to be aware of the neighbors, and that's what the council is trying to do, is to protect their harmony and their dwelling,
So council and recorder, you've heard the motion by Councilman Coates with the two additional conditions. Councilman Belliston helped with that. We have the motion. Is there a second?
I seconded it.
Councilman Belliston has a second. Everybody understands the motion and the second? If so, let's go roll call, starting with Councilmember Casperson.
Aye.
Ivy. Coates.
Aye. Henderson.
Belliston. That is approved unanimously, and we look forward to you going to business. Feel good about it? I think we came to a good resolution. Thanks, Jared. Thanks, Mitch. You guys have a good night.
it was a good compromise. It was sensible.
All right, item number 7, ordinances. 7A, this is consideration to approve an ordinance for zone change Z-24-09 from A20 to RA2 and open space located at 405 East South Nichols Peak. The applicant is Mark Whitworth. Community Development Assistant Director Eldon Gibb will speak to the council on this item. Eldon.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. This property has been used residentially for quite some time, and this zone change request will put the property into conformance with its current use and align with the general plan. The request includes changing 2.584 acres from agricultural 20 to residential agricultural 2 acres, and also changing 2.187 acres from agricultural 20 to open space, as shown in the exhibit. This particular location has a general plan land use designation of low density and open space. Low density supports the RA2 request. The surrounding zoning to this parcel is R112 and agricultural 20 to the north, agricultural 20 to the east, south, and west. Staff has no concerns with the proposed zone change as outlined. The Planning Commission reviewed this request on January 15th and unanimously recommended approval of Z-24-09 for the zone change request from A20 to the proposed RA2 and open space zoning designation based on the findings stated in the report. That concludes staff report, and I'm happy to answer any questions you may have at this time.
Questions for Eldon?
Yeah, Eldon, what was the decision on making the boundary the certain boundary? It seems like, I'll just tell you my concern is that it's wider than the current structure, and I don't want any future building of additional stuff up there. I think what's up there is enough, and I know what they're trying to do with this property, which I'm in support of. I just want to make sure we're not all of a sudden adding like 3 or 4 different more townhomes on top. So that's my concern, is the boundary is a little wider than I think it should be more tightened up to what the current existing structure is.
Yeah, that's a great comment. Keep in mind, they're only changing 2 acres, so the acreage wouldn't allow them to subdivide further.
If you say they can't, then that's fine. I just want to make sure we're not, like, all of a sudden we see 5 townhomes pop up on the ridge and it's zoned for it.
So you're saying it's 2.5 acres and they're asking for RA2?
Correct.
Okay.
This isn't in hillside at all. No hillside on this.
Currently where the home sits, no. No, the open space is in the hillside, which is staying open space. Correct.
Thanks, Eldon.
The acreage, to be exact, it's 2.5 acres. They're changing it to RA2. So they're, yeah.
Maybe I wasn't paying attention. Purpose of the zone change.
Currently, it's Ag 20, and it's being used residentially. So that's the first. And then the second, the applicant would like to bring a nightly use to the home.
So at Planning Commission, it was proposed that they be given an overlay zone for nightly rental, with the underlying zone being Ag 20, but that does not consist with our city code. The city code does not allow an agricultural zone to have an overlay of nightly rental, so staff had to send them back through to.
So they have to.
In a residential under zoning.
Make the zone change so they can make a future application
for a nightly overlay.
Overlay zone.
Yeah.
I was confused as to why the house already exists if they're not building more. Councilman Coates' question.
Sorry, I heard it in the Planning Commission, so that's why it wasn't mentioned tonight.
Good point, Manager. Councilman Belson.
Good to know what we're doing.
Denied. They withdrew their application knowing they would be putting in this zone change.
Okay. Additional discussion, questions?
Mayor, I'm ready for motion.
Okay. Applicant, I don't think they even want to hear from you. If you're okay with that? That's the best way to get through a land use application is not even have to speak. Councilman Ivey, go ahead with your motion.
Mayor, make a motion to approve an ordinance for zone change Z-24-09 from A20 to RA2 and open space.
Have a motion to approve by Councilman Ivey, a second by Councilman Belliston. This is an ordinance, so we're going to go roll call. Let's start with Councilmember Ivey.
Aye.
Coates. Henderson.
Aye.
Belliston. Casperson.
Aye.
Item 7A is approved unanimously. We're going to move on to 7B, and as Councilman Coates noted, he is just noting that he works for the firm that did this plan. 7B is consideration to approve an ordinance adopting the Washington City Secondary Water Irrigation Master Plan. It looks like Public Works Director Blake Fonsbeck will present to the council on this item. And for the record, the council had an extensive presentation and discussion on this 2 weeks ago in our workshop meeting, and we just moved this forward for action. Blake, is there anything else you would add on this item before we move forward?
I don't think there was anything, unless there's specific questions on it. We do have DeLoss here. He can come up and answer any questions that you may have, but I think we covered it fairly well, unless something came up.
Questions for the Public Works Director or the engineer that worked on the plan?
I think our key is we're just excited about it if we can move forward, and then we can start putting some of those things together in our budgets and plan to move for some of that low-hanging fruit.
Okay.
Get things going.
Yeah. It was textbook plan, textbook presentation. Thank you, Blake. Council, further discussion on this? If not, I'll entertain a motion to approve item 7B, adopting the Washington City Secondary Water Irrigation Master Plan.
So moved.
Have a motion by Councilmember Belliston. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilman Henderson. We're going to go roll call vote on this because it's an ordinance starting with Councilmember Henderson.
Aye.
Belliston. Casperson. Ivey. Coates.
I'll abstain from this one.
That is approved unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you, DeLoss. And thank you, Blake, and your whole department. You're welcome to stay through the end if you want to, but you don't have to. There's a few that I'm not talking to on that. Moving along to item 8 on the agenda, this is a resolution. This is consideration to approve a resolution approving an interlocal cooperation agreement between Washington County and Washington City for full election services. City Recorder, Ms. Tara Pence, will present to the council on this item. Tara.
Mayor and council, gotta be in the mic. I did include the interlocal agreement in your packet. You'll notice the county's taking care of the majority of the election outside of, we are required to provide staff to go over there and be trained and be present at the election on a daily basis, which myself and Hannah will both go over. And then they did include in the interlocal agreement this time that the Board of Canvassers, which is all of you, may attend ballot processing, post-elections, the audit, anything that you want to attend to go over there, you can do that. So, do you have any questions for me?
Haven't we already kind of been doing this anyway?
Yeah, this is a new interlocal agreement because of all of the confusion 2 years ago during our municipal election. The county actually redid the entire thing and sent it out to all of the municipalities.
You'll recall the county gave us notice of intent to terminate our agreement. Some of the problems that arose, they decided to terminate the agreement. I believe there was some intent to use that as leverage for certain cities that the county felt like were going out of the bounds of the existing agreement. And then they went ahead and just rewrote a new agreement. Legislative changes about elections as well, and so I think it's still our intent to follow the Utah code, which says counties will administer elections unless the city wants to supplant them, and we still think that we'd like the county to keep being good at that for us.
And they are good at it. Councilman Ivey.
Sorry, Mayor. Is this an annual agreement, or does it have to be?
It can be, it will auto-renew for 10 years unless we give written notice or they give written notice they're withdrawing, but it will auto-renew each election year for 10 years.
So does this talk about costs that we pay, and would those changes cost during that 10 years? Is that one of the variables in the agreement?
Yep, part of the agreement is they are required to give us election costs to cover the cost of our portion of the election by March 31st. We're hoping that's sooner, but we will have to cover our portion, but we don't know what that will be.
Cheaper than what we could do.
I'm certain. I'm certain.
we
I do.
would-
Spoken like a true elected official.
Because
Less than
of-
what we could cost us to do.
Because of the legislature's laws on election administration, we would have to go buy all the exact same equipment that they have. And we'd have to have the secure rooms and the different security measures that they have. We just would use it for one election, whereas they use it for, many, many elections, and they use it for the local elections and the state and national elections. And so they're costing to us. I mean, it comes at a cost, but it's probably far, far superior to pay that cost than to own the equipment and replace it ourselves on a sequence like they do.
Thank you, Tara.
Thank you.
Council, I'm ready for a motion unless you'd like to discuss this item further.
Mayor, I'll make a motion that we approve the resolution for the interlocal cooperation agreement between Washington County and Washington City for full election services.
There's a motion by Councilman Coates. Is there a second?
I'll second that, Mayor.
Second by Councilman Ivy. It's a resolution. We're going to go roll call again, starting with Councilmember Belliston.
Aye.
Casperson. Ivy. Coates. Henderson.
Aye.
That is approved unanimously. Item 8B.
Mayor, can I just say something before you move on?
Yes.
I just want to say, 2 years ago when we did the elections, I thought it was I went to the county and, was with Tara, and I went through all the different steps, and I feel like they do a very good job at executing the code and the Utah laws, and I feel like if there are, concerns with some of the election processes, I feel like we need to let our representatives know about, because I think they are aware of some of the concerns and issues, but I feel like the county does a good job at, they're very efficient and they do a good job. And so if people do have, concerns, then to reach out to our representatives and work to try to, improve our elections, because I feel there's always a room for improvement.
Well said. Thank you. Next item, 8B. This is consideration to approve a resolution approving the reuse authorization contract with Washington County Water Conservancy District. City Attorney Thad Segmiller will present on this item, and of course, in our work session, we had a presentation from the Conservancy District. Mr.
Thank you,
Segmiller.
Mayor. This might be a quote from Albert Einstein, but something like, because elections always have a loser, there's always somebody questioning, the way the vote was counted, right? And Utah's not immune from that. The most recent one was the elections in the fall where the lieutenant governor got involved with deciding certain things that related precisely to the ballot that the lieutenant governor is on. And so it's impossible to make them perfect, but I perceive that the state of Utah is trying really hard to improve as we go. You saw Morgan's presentation at the work session. Some of you will remember way back in October, we reviewed this contract together as a council. The council indicated an approval of the contract, but at the time, none of the other institutions had signed it. This isn't an interlocal, it's a reuse authorization contract between Washington City and the Washington County Water Conservancy District, but we wanted to wait and see how things changed with the other municipalities before we decided to execute it. The contract hasn't changed. Morgan and her team at the Water District work hard, and everybody's on the same page of executing the same form as what you've been presented with. I guess I would say, unless Morgan's presentation changed your mind from October, it's probably just a formality vote to go ahead and approve the resolution that authorizes the city to enter this contract.
So Thad, can I ask you a question though on so they're using reuse, right? So it's kind of interesting where we get our water back for only the well water rights we have, but what about all the water we purchased from them and then sent down the drain? Do we not get rights back for that?
So we get back, the way the contract's written is any of our water that we were to put into the sewer system, we would get back minus a percentage, which is a percentage to calculate for loss. The challenge.
And that's based off our water rights.
Correct. The challenge is we buy more Quail Lake water and put into our culinary system than we pump right now, right? And so if we were entirely serving our well water, we would get nearly all of that back in a reuse
I understand
allocation.
that, but how come, I mean, technically, we're buying it from them.
It's their water right. They're the ones that
It's
hold
their
the water right.
And they sold us the water from the right, and then they're taking it back.
Correct.
So how is it not kind of ours after we purchased it?
Because we didn't buy the water, we bought the right to use the water. Water right is the right to use water. And so part of this agreement includes a subsequent filing with the state engineer where the district and the cities are going to file a new water right for the sewer tailing water, if you will. And so Washington City is going to file a water right, and so will the other cities that says, we discharge this much of water right 81-7-B every year into the sewer system. So we're asking the state engineer to give us a new certificate for a new water right that is sourced out of the treatment plant. Now that'll be less than the amount we put in there because there's loss and other things, but part of this agreement contemplates that we'll have a water right filing that'll obtain for Washington City a new water right. This agreement says, though, that we will be served it from the water district's reuse system. We won't be going and collecting that water right ourselves. They'll administer it for us and deliver it to us. And so I share that because that's the same example. We sell the water to Thad's Shower, but we don't, by serving Thad's Shower, we don't say that Thad owns that water and can turn around and resell it to somebody else. We just say that Thad uses it and then he discharges it and it's ours. We've just never sought to use that component of the water right that we've had.
Just never thought of it that way, but.
Yeah, that's how the water law exists. Now could I bottle my shower water and sell it? Yeah. Would we ever find out? Yeah, but I couldn't sell the water right. I couldn't go sell that portion of the well.
Councilman Henderson wants a bottle of that. So as soon as you get that.
Can you strike that from the record, please?
It's not economical. I tried it already. My business failed.
Bottled water.
My startup did not last very long of Thad's bottling.
Bottle that water, I'm gonna add a little watermelon powder to it.
Little
Make sure it's
electrolytes.
shower water, Thad.
Yeah, and so there's the use of the water and then there's the ownership of the right. We couldn't transfer the right that the district sold to us. They sold us the water use, but they didn't sell us the underlying right. Just like our ownership of the well water that went through Thad's Shower, we're the ones that'll be able to submit for another water right for the tailwater of that.
Yeah, that's a really good explanation, but I just can't get that image out of my mind. Council, it's time to vote on this.
Me showering or
This,
me filling
the bottling your shower water. So
I'll make a motion, Mayor.
go ahead, Councilmember Casperson.
I make a motion to approve a resolution approving the reuse authorization contract with Washington County Water Conservancy District.
You've heard the motion by Councilwoman Casperson, second by Councilman Belliston. Let's go roll call, starting with Councilmember Casperson.
Aye.
Ivy. Coates.
Aye.
Henderson.
Aye.
Belliston. That is approved unanimously. Item 9A, this is new business, or item 9 is new business. 9A, consideration to approve moving forward with the critical culinary water transmission lines replacement. Public Works Director Blake Fonsbeck, thank you for a very good briefing document. Come explain it to us, and we will give you marching orders and process to get this done.
Okay, great. Yeah, see, this is a scary picture right here, and this is kind of what, this happened in October of this past year, where we had a 16-inch high-pressure line for these transmission lines break, and it created a lot of damage in that. So that was just kind of to give you a feel
Where exactly
for it.
was this?
This was up in Salente. They just put this infrastructure in, built everything, it was all good. And then one of the lines, the 16-inch line, burst in October on a Sunday, and it took them about 2.5 hours to get it stopped. And we lost about 2 million gallons of water. And it would have been, you can see how close these lines are. If it had taken out some of these lines as well, we could have had really much bigger problems.
When it says 4 wells and 3 water tanks.
So, yeah, I'll
North
get,
of the parkway, does that also include the one that's on the north end of the ridge line in Sienna Hill, between Sienna Hills and Coral?
It does
Start
not
from the,
include
yeah,
that.
start from the top, Blake, and give
Yeah,
us the full, and then,
it does-
if it doesn't answer it clearly, come back to the councilman's question.
Right, so we have 4 wells and 3 water tanks that are north of Washington Parkway. And these are all served by basically 6 different transmission lines, major transmission lines. They are, it's kind of a web, spider web there of lines. You have a 16-inch ductile well line that comes from the wells and comes down onto the Washington Parkway, and you can see it on the very edge of there. It comes down and then it heads over and then back up in kind of a diagonal, going up and then up to the tanks. And then you have 2 more or 3 more transmission lines going down that side, down Colima Road and then cutting through the desert there. You have to keep in mind, none of that was just open desert when all of these were built. And they're basically from anywhere from the early mid-70s through 2014 is the latest one that was put in. That was the 14-inch line. And then you have 2 16-inch lines, one a high pressure and one low pressure, coming straight down from the tanks down to the parkway there as well. This does not include over at Sienna Hills. That is another project that we will need to look at, and we've had some main breaks over there as well. We did, and that's serious as well. These ones, actually, the seriousness of this is that 60% of the water supply north of the river comes through these lines. And so when we had a main break in 23, in August of 23, right when our heaviest demand is, we just barely made it through getting that repaired and without going dry and having problems. As soon as you lose pressure in lines, then you have serious issues with that, and that can cause you to have to go even further, and you could end up with a boil order if you drain a tank, those kind of things. The way you keep water clean is to keep pressure in the lines and to keep that safe. So
Blake,
we had
hold
some.
on just a sec, Blake, sorry. What's causing these breaks?
So what we're looking at is these lines we've found, and that's what we found a lot of when the damage was caused when we had these breaks. The one in 23, we noticed that it was built, when it was built, and that would have been in 2004, it was not bedded properly. So the important thing with water lines is that you have a nice bedding underneath them, and that they tend to move. I don't know if you've ever been on a farm with irrigation when you shut water off fast, or you get a hammer, or you get things moving. Well, as that demand goes back and forth with things, you have different fluctuations, and so they'll try to move a little bit. And if you put PVC and you have them resting on rock, which we found in both of these locations, as well as after this break, this last one, we noticed there were several other locations where the bells or the pipe themselves are resting on humps of rock and things like that. So as that moves, that can cause it to split. The problem is even more so, ductile iron's one thing, it will tend to split like right around the pipe. And so you'll have a smaller problem with a ductile iron pipe breaking generally. But with PVC, it always most likely will split the full length of a 20-foot section of pipe. And so it just kind of breaks apart lengthwise instead of just around in a smaller area. So you can have larger damage, larger, faster main breaks, those kind of things. So that's one of the things that we're really concerned about, is that we knew there was an issue. It wasn't the same inspections when these things were put in 2004, not the same standards. It was open desert. They just dug, put them in. We don't even, in some of those locations, without going and locating it exactly all the way through, some of the depths and everything, we're not positive on even the depths of the pipelines in those areas. So when we looked at this and realized after this last disaster that we had with the break, and saw the infrastructure damage that was caused, when you put all of this development that's going to be over the top and around this, and you have narrow ways to work on that through there, and don't have this many lines at risk, you're kind of setting yourself up for a big issue down the road. So in order to strengthen our system, and really this is the time to take care of it, just because of it's going to be a lot harder and costlier if we wait till the development is in place. You'll also have interruptions in service to people and that. So we looked at this and decided this is the time that we really need to find a more direct route and something that we can reduce the number of lines and make it less complicated and have less risk in that sense. So we want to put them in new lines. We want to take 3 of the lines, the 14-inch, the 12, and the 16 low pressure, and actually put those all into one single 24-inch line coming down, and then still have the 16-inch, put in a new 16-inch high pressure line, and then also a new well line. So it takes us from 6 lines down to 3, less risk with, and then it also, we can ensure that the bedding is done correctly, that they're installed better, and so that we can not have the risks that we have, not only to this area and to the homes in that area, but also just to our citizens and our with their water supply. Because if we have a catastrophic thing that happens at the right time of the summer, we could be days before we get things back up and where they need to be, and that could be a real issue and problem. So we're really trying to plan ahead. The problem that we have is just the reason we're coming to this right now, and it's kind of out of budget, is in the sense of doing it out of the budget year, is that once we realized that we needed to do this, there's kind of a time frame so that we can get it in before the development gets further developed, and then also that we have that constraint if we can't do any of this in the middle of the summer. So we have to keep these lines operating through the summer. And so we're trying to get as much done as we can in this springtime, get this bid out, and then get it done in the spring. Before that point, do some of the critical things that are under roads or other things that we can do during that period of time. And then during the summer, we can do some of the things that we can take offline for a little bit and then finish it up in the fall. So we're kind of trying to deal with the timing. It's a big project. It's probably, I think the engineer's estimate was about $3.5 million overall for it. But let me show you so this is the kind of the lines going everywhere. This is just some of the damage that we had with that. And if you can imagine homes and everything being there, this is the well line that got exposed. If that had been destroyed, then we would have had even more problems with that.
And Blake, you can see that it's sitting on rock.
It is, yeah.
It's all sitting on
right
rock.
on the rock, and
I think that's something that's important to point out, is that we didn't recognize how bad the problem was until this break, number one. And number two, then the contractor was trying to tie into these lines, and everywhere they went to tie in, it was also sitting on rock. So this is one of the reasons we had some issues in the area, but we didn't realize how bad the problem was until we were able to uncover some of these.
The reason why I brought up that other line over there, because it was put in during the same project, right? It went from Coral Canyon Tank all the way over to these. So you've got the same issues all the way from end to end.
And we have that in our plans as well. When Elevate came in, that was one of the things that we said would have to be done, is that line would have to be replaced at that time as part of that project, but we haven't seen that happen. But so we may have to do that, ourselves at some point fairly soon. So
Remember I was talking about this line when we were talking about that roadway. It's like, I don't want to put a roadway on top of this. I guarantee that's going to happen. And
I actually do
because
remember
I've seen
I thought about that when we were talking, just barely, yeah.
several times. In fact, walking out there and walking up that line, I've seen it exposed 16-inch water line, no cover whatsoever on it.
So what you're asking for tonight is authorization to take this out to bid. Now, I'm assuming you've got the bid docs ready just based on your presentation, you are in process of preparing those?
Yeah, we're in process with that, and it would be fairly soon.
And
that
you,
would go out
you,
to
and
bid.
and assuming the council authorizes you to take this out to bid, obviously that would come back with a bid opening, probably concurrently with a opening and amending of the budget.
Right.
What's the timeframe on getting the bids back, do you think? I know time is
think
critical
we
with just
talked
summer
about
approaching.
If we get the approval, we were going to be getting those out pretty quickly, so it would probably last council meeting in February, maybe?
26th.
Or would we be before that?
No, so
Sorry, I hate to ask you that, but.
So we're gonna order the pipe now, bid the pipe, because it's a long lead time, and then bid the other project right after that.
Yeah. So
Mayor, may I just ask a question?
Councilman, of course.
I might digress a little bit here, but I want to ask this. So there has to be some accountability for this. I mean, if it was installed improperly, is the city liable? Is the person that installed it? Is it pipe? Is it?
It
I
was
mean,
in
is it all the city?
2004. It's
was it?
really difficult to have any accountability. The 2014, I mean, the line that was done in 2014, we do know that one was vetted properly. But the rest of them are very old and have served at least 50% of their lifespan and probably a little bit more than that, some of them. But certainly, we wouldn't really have any way to go back to that far back, at least as far as I'm concerned. We would have a hard time proving it because there's nobody it's just a real difficult thing to.
If it falls to the city, then we need to get it fixed, but I think we had to identify that.
To make claims in the United States legal system, you've all heard the statement statutes of limitation. In general, if you're gonna pay for something and it fails, you're not allowed to use it for 14 years and then come and make a claim, right? You're supposed to identify the failure, object to that, and then seek a remedy within a reasonable amount of time. Because of that, there's a statute of limitations. If you wanna sue Washington City for something that the city might have done, the legislature says you've got to file that suit within a year if it's for a claim like this, right? If it's for a constitutional right, you got a little more time. If I wanted to sue my neighbor for a damage claim, the legislature says I've got 3 years to sue them. And so I don't think that, these are old enough that I don't think Washington City, if we made a claim, I don't think it would succeed.
Blake, what else should the council know before we entertain a motion to approve you moving forward with the bid process on this item?
I just think that we probably will not need, when we do come back for a budget adjustment to do this, we would not need probably the whole 3.5 million up front in this year's budget. There's gonna be a portion of it that will go over into the next year's budget. So we have budgeted in next year's budget part of that. Right now, we're looking at about 2.5 million that we haven't.
So you're talking current fiscal year 25 with 26 funds as well?
Probably be right around that 2.5 million. And I'm sure you could decide, once we get the bid, we could possibly do that budget adjustment right towards the end when you're doing the budget adjustments that you usually do, and base it on the actual amounts rather than trying to guess along there. Kind of depends on the progress and that. And then the other thing is that we will also, this is to take care of this section of it. There's continue other lines that go further up that we will be replacing as in planning in that. As that development progresses, that will be one of our key things, is looking at how we plan to replace those sections as well ahead of time and that. So that's, and then you're right in the sense that we still have another section that but they were all installed by the same contractor in the same time period. And it was a time when, as far as I understand, that we just didn't have quite the same standards that we have now.
It makes you appreciate some of those staff members you have over in Public Works that do those inspections and do those approvals, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Those lines, the light blue's currently in, the dark blue's currently in, and the oscillus is currently in.
Those are the new, this is the showing where the new ones will go. Those are all new. The currently in would be, if you go back to the picture I had earlier, this is what's currently there now. And so we will be, if you look along Colima, just below that, you see that kind of triangle going across the desert. Those 3 lines that are there would go away. We would have the well line go up Salente Parkway, which is already installed partway that way, and I think down to Lozano Road, I believe, at least to that intersection. And then we'd continue the well line up the road there, but then the others would come down, just instead of directly down through there, they would come over into a wash area, because we would have, there's a wash, natural wash that's there that provides us with more easement area and a little bit further away from homes on either side. So we're not directly right in their backyards. So we have an easement, so we can, if we do have something happen, we can get in there and repair it easily. But we can also have minimized the damage that would, so we're trying to, the current lines go, if you look at the way the development's designed right now, they go right down through the backyard of a whole bunch of homes. And so that just increases that possibility of a lot more damage and risk to the city as it goes through there. But, so we're trying to, with the alignment, also improve and reduce the risk that we would have with those. But we'd bring them along Washington Parkway, which will also reduce that risk quite a bit, instead of cutting across the open desert. When it's what they, it's just shortest point to the before.
Blake, we appreciate being proactive on this. Council, are all your questions answered?
Make a motion, Mayor, if.
Councilman Henderson,
you're ready.
please. Yes, we're ready for bids on this project.
Mayor, I'd like to make a motion that we approve moving forward with the critical culinary water transmission lines replacement.
You've heard the motion by Councilman Henderson. Is there a second?
I'll second that, Mayor.
I have a second by Councilman Ivy. Let's go roll call, starting with Councilmember Henderson, Belliston, Casperson, Ivy, Coates. That is approved unanimously.
Thank you.
4-0. Thank you. The next item of business is 10 workshop continuation, and we do not have need for that. Thank you, Rick, for a fine presentation in the work session. We'll move on to item number 11, which is report of officers from assigned committee. We'll start with Councilmember Belliston. The Washington Area Chamber had the Balloon Fest. I assume it went well.
I heard it went well. Unfortunately, I was unable to go to that one.
A little windy, but went well.
Yeah, Saturday got kind of blown out a little bit. I know they gave some rain checks to people that had, tethered rides bought, got their money back. A few people came back a few days later, but as well as you can with, Mother Nature doing their thing, right?
Yeah, if you talk to Mother Nature, tell her to send rain and snow.
Friday was beautiful. They had about 30 balloons up on Friday.
I got a handful of phone calls of why are these balloons so close to my house? Like, they get really close.
Especially in your neighborhood.
Right there. My wife was pissed. But it's beautiful, but sometimes I wish they'd just stay a little higher. So,
Councilmember Henderson.
Mayor, we were a little slow during the holidays, but I've got a couple of meetings coming up in February, so I'll be able to have some conversation for you then.
Perfect. Councilman Coates.
I have nothing tonight because Rick went over the power board. So we went over.
Councilman Ivy, have you been doing anything?
Yeah.
With the legislature back open?
We got a lot going on. First, I'd want to report on the St. George Area Chamber of Commerce had a really nice gala. It was well attended and raised a good amount of money for some, for charity and different things. But yeah, there's a lot going on. The session has opened and it's fast and furious, as we've talked about before. We're tracking bills already that are going to be impactful, and we're trying to keep an eye on those and direct them. But there's still a lot of ongoing conversation about a bill that actually passed last year. It was HB 80, and it has it has kind of permeated conversation all year long. It basically changes the way council members do business forever. It was kind of an overhaul by Representative Cutler and Senator Stevenson that has to do with office holder disclosure modifications. And I think we've already had a training on that, but it made significant changes to the way we do conflicts of interest, things like that. But, you know, it's something that some people like, some people don't, but the legislature has been very adamant about it. And even in having discussions about it during the year, it was just, we're demanding, you know, more accountability, more transparency and that kind of thing. So there's some significant changes coming there. I know there's some other things there that we probably need to recommend. I would recommend that each council member read HB 80 and just be aware of what it is, because there's actually penalties in it now, and if you have to abstain from something, then you have to file a sworn statement, things like that. That, you know, like I said, there's people that like it, some that don't. I kind of fell in the camp that I felt like it was maybe an overreach as a first look, but it's pretty sweeping, and it'd be good just to read it and be familiar with it. It set a limit that if you stand to make more than 5,000, then that's what triggers it. And, you know, I know our staff will do a great job bringing that forward when it's appropriate, but that has been a conversation that's gone on and on. They recommended that we just bring it up and just say, this is something that probably it's not going away, and there's probably more going to be added to it this year. But anyway, that, and then I have a good update from DTEC, the MPO. We met just yesterday and had a really, really good conversation, and was able to get together with our good public works people and had a really good conversation about future roads and some of those needs that we have. I met with the director over at the MPO and had a good conversation. We're going to have another meeting with him next week. But some important things that I just circled here that I want to mention is just remember in February is the Transportation Expo coming up. But UDOT has a new moniker this year that it says the transit goal, and this was memorialized in HB 322, that we're not about moving cars, we're about moving people. So that's a totally different look on how that works as we get people around, not necessarily cars. But I was really, really proud of the comments in our meeting, because Washington was talked about a lot. We were trendsetters in so many ways in asking for money for a fund, and we learned a little bit more about, because we reached out and did this, then now the MPO has utilized it and had it on an agenda. It's the State Transportation Investment Fund, and we've already utilized that once. But the truth is, in this money, there's $50 million that every year that goes mostly to the Wasatch Front. And we want to utilize that money down here. And just as a point, we were the first ones to ever utilize that money and to use it. So it's really good. Felt really good about the conversation there, and we'll talk more about that. I know that it's a real technical group that I really look around the room in there and see people that are just great leaders, and there's a sense that we have to serve our community, but we have to work cooperatively to get things done. And so I look forward to serving on that, and I'll bring back updates. But please, if you have any questions or anything, please reach out and let me advocate for you, there, because there's a lot of moving parts to it. I had a great first meeting with the Washington City Youth Council a week ago, and something I'll tell you really, really quick is that in talking to them, the Youth Council told me that they would like to have to be involved in the legislative process. And so I shared a bill with them, and the bill is from Representative Shipp out of Cedar City, that has a bill that would actually teach school children, school people, not just children, but school-aged students about gun safety. And it would be taught in the schools. And, immediately as soon as I talked about it, then there was different viewpoints. And I said, now you need to take this and you go read the bill and study it and come back, and we're going to vote on it in Youth Council and see if we're aligned with what the legislature will be but that's one bill that they're talking about. I'm excited to be a part of that group. it's dynamic. The young people there are just inspirational with their willingness to serve our community. And we had a really good, really good first meeting. But, you know, we'll keep an eye on things. Like I said, the legislature expects to have over 1,000 bills. And sometimes that gets daunting, but we try to identify them by what will affect us. And so if there's anything you hear about that you want us to follow, then please reach out. But we're off to a flying start so far. Thank you, Mayor.
Councilman Ivey, can I ask a question? So we met with the legislature, or our representatives a few weeks or a month or so ago. I just want to know how we're going to follow up on the concerns we brought up about last year's bill that really affect us, like especially the stormwater, how it affects our staff. Just wondering how we follow up with them on that and keep on track to try to get some of that change this year so it doesn't keep adding to it. Maybe we reduce it a little bit.
So I was out of town during that breakfast meeting. Let's get together offline, identify them, and I'll reach out to them or you know, however I can help. But I agree, we need to follow up. It's not closed-ended. If there's things that are passed that affect us negatively, they need to know that, because that will not only aid in the future, but it will help identify concerns that we have, and we can work on those. I'm not familiar exactly with what those are, as I wasn't at that meeting, but let's talk about it.
Jordan, you arranged that meeting and took the notes. Can you just come speak to that just briefly, and then we'll move to Councilwoman Casperson?
Yeah, one of the bills and specifically that we've addressed was the one that required off-site inspections when it comes to SWIP. And I met with the bill sponsor up in Salt Lake about a month ago, and they've changed the language going forward so that cities and contractors can opt out of those virtual inspections and opt instead for on-site inspections. And then the other issue that we brought up was just the amount of paperwork that's been added. And they said that they don't want to create additional burdens on cities and municipalities, and will obviously keep us in mind. But any language or any bills moving forward, I think, you know, we look at what those impacts are on the city, what additional work does that require our staff to do, and therefore we have to pay for. And there are a lot of bills this year, especially dealing with preemption when it comes to zoning laws. And I know that we were upset a couple of years ago when they took some authority away from city councils when it comes to zoning and land use authority. This year, there are a couple bills, preemption bills, that would, one, for example, would allow residential in commercial zones. So things like that we're already voicing our opposition to. I've heard that those types of bills this year, there isn't an appetite to pass them, and most of those bills are just to start a conversation. But I'm monitoring all of those bills every day and weighing in with bill sponsors. And Eric Isom and I are in constant communication every day as well, texting back and forth on the progress of different bills. One bill that I think I would love to get your thoughts on offline is Neil Walter has a bill that would allow the cities to now track illegal overnight rentals and to reach out to those platforms and request that those platforms remove those illegal listings. Neil Walter's running that bill. There is appetite to pass that bill this year. They look at this as a housing supply issue. The city of St. George alone has 1,000 illegal nightly rentals that are operating right now. And I'm sure we have a high number in our city as well. If we're able to track those and remove those from those platforms like VRBO and Airbnb, that would then take that housing, put it into the market for people who could use that for long-term housing. So if that's something that you are in support of, I think Neil Walter would love our support and our encouragement to other legislators to pass bills like that.
When you say illegal, I mean, you're talking illegal that are running that don't have business licenses or whatever else.
Or they're not in the right
other
zone.
issue that we're dealing with quite a bit, and, you know, maybe we can talk about, you know, how to deal with it locally in Washington City, but is the ones that aren't sprinkled, that are advertising 16. We have one listing that's advertising sleeps 32, you know, and so you got, if those could be added to it as well.
Yeah, and he has structured his bill that still gives the municipality the ability to regulate those how we see fit from city to city. But just the teeth in it is that we can require these platforms to remove those listings that go against either our city ordinances or state law.
Which is interesting, Jordan, because the legislature's appetite for that was very much the opposite a few years ago when this bill was initiated.
And I asked him what has changed, and he said in 2017, when the bill first passed that outlawed cities took away our authority to regulate, he said back then we didn't have a housing crisis, we didn't have an inflation crisis, and the demand wasn't near as high as it is today. And legislators are now saying in 2025, times have changed. We need to get serious about what we're doing in regards to housing in our state.
Thanks, Jordan. Keep up the good work. Keep tracking it. Councilwoman Casperson.
I just recently had a meeting with the Washington City Arts Council, and I thought it would be interesting to know that they have their website up, and it has all their, the Kids in the Park information, the workshops, the socials, all about art. And I feel like they did a really nice job. And then they have a workshop coming up this month, actually, January 25th. And you can actually go on their website to be able to sign up for that. And it seems like they've had good interest in their workshops, and also like with the Kids in the Park. And so you can go on WashingtonCityArtsCouncil.com for more information about their workshops and their different events that they have. And they have, I don't know if everyone's aware, but they have a new president, Todd Prince, and I feel like is doing a really good job. And then they also have new board members too that are, they're making it have some more people are involved and making it with new ideas and, making it even better. So I just thought you all would like to know that. Maybe updated.
Thank you. Great report. So I just have two, obviously the regional reuse continues to be a priority for the Washington County Water Conservancy District. A group of local elected and appointed officials will be heading down to San Diego in the near future to tour their reuse facility and just to kind of continue to understand and as we work towards building out our own. So that's a big thing. In talking with Councilwoman Casperson before the meeting tonight, she reminded me of Washington County. I think I would echo what our commissioners are saying and asking. We haven't had rain in months here, and of course, last meeting I said there's still February and March, and those are often rainy months for us. But I just implore you to continue to pray for rain, and we certainly need that to sustain life and livelihood here in the desert. And then the other report from assigned committee that I'd give is I'm serving on a little bit of an ad hoc committee, which is it's a countywide America 250 committee, and it's commemorating America's 250th anniversary. And so Jordan and I serve on that, and others from around the county, and we're working hard to make this year special because America is very special. And one of the things that we've committed to do is, and we're working towards the George Washington Plaza, and Barry's been before the council and shown that on that little remnant triangle piece down off George Washington Boulevard. You remember the George Washington statue that ourselves and St. George and the county all went in on thirds. That's the Jerry Anderson statue. We're working to try to fund the landscaping and the build out of that. The council, you were gracious enough to allocate $250,000. Paul Walker, as he's doing so well, is looking to additional sourcing for funding, and we've had great success in getting grant monies that we haven't historically done. So he's written a letter that I've signed, and we are seeking additional funding from the county. But it's looking like that the improvements on that might exceed that. They're going to exceed that $250,000. So if you just kind of keep that in the back of your mind, Jeremy will kind of keep you up to speed on progress of the grant money. But would like to have that done by April 19th. That day would kick off Cotton Days. It's kind of at the tail end of the county fair. and it's also the date for what, the shot that was heard around the world that started the Revolutionary War. So if we come back asking for just a little bit more money, I'm just trying to soften you up a little bit with this message tonight during reports from assigned committees. Fair enough? Item 12, city manager report.
Now that you're softened, I feel like I should ask for something, but I don't have anything tonight, Mayor. I am finishing up my yearly management report, and I'll have that for the next meeting. So everybody be excited, be ready. That's all I have.
We do not have need for a closed session this evening. So it's the moment we've all been waiting for, a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Motion by Councilman Coates, second by Councilman Bellison. All in favor?
Aye.
This meeting is closed. Gavel.